Morning, everybody, and welcome to our Executive and Finance Corporate Standing Committee meeting for August, the month of August. And we'll move straight on to leave of absence or apologies.
Deputy Mayor, Acting Mayor, we have an apology from Mayor Otto. He's not well today.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. And no other leave of absence, I don't believe, or apologies. So we'll move straight on now, and I'll hand over now to... move. Do we have a mover to accept the leave of absence on behalf of our Mayor? Councillor Duff, second to Councillor Shoemaker. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, recognition of traditional owners, and our Indigenous portfolio holder, Councillor Duff, will perform that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I'd like to acknowledge country and the traditional owners of the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka people, and acknowledge the elders both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Declaration of interest. Is there any declaration of interest, councillors, on any items in front of us here today? No? All good. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. They're on item number 5. Officer's recommendation that the minutes of the Executive and Finance and Corporate Standing Committee meeting held on the 21st of July 2021 be received. Do I have a mover? Councillor Fryloff, seconder. Councillor Duff. Any questions? No? All good. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Item number 6, business arising. 6.1, Parks and Gardens Master Plan Advisory Committee. Officer's recommendation that Council notes the report for information, and you can find that on page 22 of your agenda. A bit of background: at the Community Standing Committee meeting on the 14th of July 2021, Council resolved that the Acting Manager, NRM and Parks works with the portfolio holder to bring back to the August Executive and Finance and Corporate Standing Committee meeting guidelines and options for a Parks and Gardens Master Plan Advisory Committee. So key staff absences as a result of the South East Queensland COVID lockdown has delayed preparation of this report. So hence the officer's recommendation that this be received for information only. So we have a mover, Councillor Duff, seconder, Councillor Henson. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item number 7, 7.1, Portfolio, Corporate Services, People, Culture, Communications, Media, Finance and ICT. And that Mayor Otto presents his corporate services. So, so the officer's recommendation is that we take it as tabled. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Henson, and no doubt you have all had time to read that. Is there any questions arising from the report of corporate services? You have a look through it. It gives us an update on all the media responses, public notices, media releases 29, media inquiries 10, social media, Facebook 61, LinkedIn 8 posts, Instagram 9. And so on. So it's a pretty comprehensive report that Mayor Otto always gives at the Executive and Finance. So this one is exactly the same. No questions. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wondered if the team, perhaps GM Susan, may give an update on the customer service review that's underway. It sounds like from the report there's been a lot of work done in this space, and yeah, I'd just like to understand where we're at and where we're going over these next couple of months.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Acting Mayor. Thanks for the opportunity, Councillor. Part of the review, the business systems review into our customer service there has been to form a governance committee where we actually understand the business of council. So the software is the last thing that we actually develop there. So at the moment we've been engaging with every stakeholder within the council. It's been a comprehensive business analysis and understanding what the definition, what they define as a customer request, timeframes, how we react timeframes. So that's all being analysed. The last update that I had was that we will start implementing that within the software within, I think it was October. We would start doing that. So I just want to I want to extend my appreciation to the general managers and managers who have also allowed their staff to participate in this really important process, because it does affect every single element of the council, and it is our front-facing to our community to get this right. And because of council's input or requests about, you know, some of the customer requests weren't being actioned or being lost in the system, this is why we've elevated it as our priority project at the moment.
Fabulous, thank you.
Thanks, GM Jarvis, for that explanation. Very good. So we'll go to the vote on that. So the committee recommendation is that Mayor Otto's Corporate Services, People and Culture, Communications, Media, Finance and ICT Portfolio Report to Council be received. Do I have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Potter. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. 7.2 Australia Day, nomination forms and location. So the officer's recommendation that the committee recommend to Council, 1, the South Burnett Regional Council 2021 nomination forms be approved, and 2, the location of Australia Day Awards ceremony be held at the Nanango State High School Hall, and the date is to be confirmed here today. We have a mover for that. Sorry.
Deputy Mayor, or sorry, yeah, Councillor Duff is, yeah, if I just made just a preamble before people leap into action over Australia Day. We ran it for the first time last year on the Sunday afternoon, I think, at Wandai, which was went off very well. The reason that the date's been left open is, did council still wish to run on the weekend or fall back to the previous practice of the evening before Australia Day? So previously it's always been on well, it's still on rotation, but it's the evening of Australia Day. So yeah, so we're just seeking council's direction on, do you want Sundays or Sunday afternoon type, or do you want to go back to the evening of?
Yep.
Sorry,
Councillor Duff.
I was going to move that that the be the evening of Tuesday, January 25th, 2022, because I just think it loses its impact if it's not the evening before, if it's too far away from the actual day. So that's why I'd like to put in the evening of Tuesday, January 25th, 2022.
So Councillor Duff, you're happy to move that with Tuesday the 25th of January 22. So do we have a seconder to start the conversation? Councillor Shoemaker. I'll now open it up to the floor and just discuss around the, excuse me, the date that Councillor Duff has proposed there, Tuesday the 25th of January, or any other options. Open to the floor. Any comments? Councillor Potter?
Yeah, thank you. I actually preferred the Sunday because we did it for the Sunday on the first time at Wandai this year on Australia Day, and I think the idea of the Sunday means that more people can attend if they would like to. So I do prefer the Sunday as opposed to the Tuesday evening, because that does leave a lot of packing, and it is a really late night for the staff to get back to work. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Potter. Councillor Froloff?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I agree with Councillor Potter. I believe Sunday's the better option because even the elderly enjoyed it more on the Sunday afternoon down at Wandai, and yeah, a lot of people had more chance of getting out, and it's not a late night for the older members of the community to be out the night before, where they can enjoy a nice Sunday afternoon.
Councillor Hanchin?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. Yeah, I can appreciate where Councillor Duff is coming from. Certainly Australia Day in years gone by has been a fairly sentimental day, but I think what transpired in Wandai last year was absolutely sensational. It really was. I think that's a little bit of the change of times. So I'm happy to support a Sunday. And that being said, whichever the council decides upon, regardless, I think we don't want to lose sight of the fact that it's Australia Day we're celebrating, and the recipients.
Thanks, Councillor Hanchin. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I just wondered how many people actually attended the Wondai session on the Sunday afternoon? Does anyone recall? Yeah,
And I will stand absolutely corrected, but there was certain restrictions on the hall because of COVID. So part of the reason that we pushed it outdoors as far as the barbecue was the floor space inside the hall. 30, 40?
oh, I think
It was more than that. Yeah, it was.
the hall was at capacity.
How many, Bronnie? 200 or 300, or 200 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I'm just trying to rack the old memory, and it's not doing so well. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just thinking, I note that we've opted here to hold it at the high school, which obviously because of COVID, there's more space at the high school hall. I just also was thinking about the fact that we've only just recently finished air conditioning the Nanango Cultural Centre and the work that's been happening around the park area and like there. I actually think the Cultural Centre would be a nicer location. But I did note that there was only seating capacity, I think, with COVID restrictions for 80 people. So I can understand why we'll hold it at the hall. I do tend to think Sunday is an easier option for families, and it was great to see. It was a shame with COVID last year that so many families were unable to attend. This year, far out, August this year. Thank you, Councillor Potter. I do tend to think a Sunday afternoon with the family is nice, and the barbecue and the presentation that was after was really lovely in Wondai. So I'm supportive of the Sunday and would probably propose an amendment, Deputy Mayor Jones, to the resolution or to the recommendation. That the committee recommend to council the nomination form exactly the same as point 1 and point 2, except just make it on the Sunday, which I don't have that date on me at this point in time. Yep. So the committee recommend to council South Burnett Regional Council 2021 nomination form be approved and the location of the Australia Day Award ceremony be held at the Nanango State High School Hall on Sunday the 23rd of January. Do I need to put in the afternoon, as an afternoon event or? Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
So just on that, Councillor Shoemaker, I thought about this, and because of the restrictions and all that with COVID and all that sort of stuff, the other facility that I think would suit an event like this would be the Nanango Showgrounds. Underneath the big roof, there's a lot of cover there. There's tables, chairs, all that sort of stuff. And I don't know, General Manager who would be able to respond to that. Have we approached the Show Society or given that any thought as regards to a venue?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think, and that was the issue with the Wondai Hall was the COVID limits, and I'm thinking whether it was somewhere around the 180 or 190 sort of figure, and people were only allowed to bring one guest, so there wasn't opened up, and we did have people waiting outside. But if you've got an outdoor venue or a larger space, then obviously your numbers can increase. So the bigger the size. So that is if COVID is going to be an issue, which it seems to be hanging on, then that would give you an option for a larger crowd.
So, Mr. CEO, in regards to the comments there from the General Manager, how do we go then if to seek availability of the showgrounds on that particular day, and how do we deal with this recommendation from here?
Okay, just practically, you deal with one amendment at the time, unless Councillor Shoemaker's amendment was to with them. Who seconded the amendment? Nobody. So probably that would be a good step forward, if I may.
Okay, so taking the CEO's advice, seconder would be Councillor Potter. Back to you, Mr. CEO.
So mover and second, with the leave of the mover, a seconder, if you wanted to maybe just drop out, be held at Nanango. And then, of course, we would need to seek a courtesy to start with, is whether the venue would be available. And so the Nanango High School will be the default, but if council wishes us to look at other venues, we can go from there as well. So the process, deal with the amendment. The amendment gets voted up. It becomes the substantive resolution is amended to read as the amendment. Then you vote again on that. If the amendment is voted down, you refer back to the first original resolution.
Okay, thanks, Mr. CEO. So, Councillor Shoemaker, you're the mover of the amendment. You happy to accept that the change there, the location of Australia Day award ceremony to be held at Nanango on
Yes.
Sunday afternoon, January 23rd, 2022?
Yes, thank you.
And the seconder, Councillor Potter, happy to accept that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so no other questions, comments, Councillor Duff?
Yeah, I actually support the amendment now, because I think that if you have it in the hall on a Sunday afternoon, it would be very hot and not pleasant. But if we had it outside in the showgrounds, I think it'd be awesome. So if we can get the approval of the Show Society, I'm good to support that. Thank you.
Yeah, well said, Councillor. So we'll go to the vote now. The recommendation has been amended, moved by Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Potter, that the committee recommends to Council the South Burnett Regional Council 2021 National Nomination Forms be approved, and 2, the location of Australia Day award ceremony be held at Nanango on Sunday afternoon, the 23rd of January 2022. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you.
So the amendment now becomes a resolution, and so you deal with the resolution again. So whether speaker for and against, or just to the vote.
So we've all heard the advice of our CEO. So the new recommendation is that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council 2021 nomination forms be approved, and 2, the location of Australia Day award ceremony be held at Nanango on Sunday afternoon, 23rd of January 2022. Do we have a mover? Oh, sorry, it's already done. Okay. This gets a little bit confusing, Mr. CEO, but anyway, all good. So, okay, comments for and against. I think we've discussed it already, but can we go straight to the vote? Any comments? Okay, all those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We move on now to item number 7.3, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Policy Governance Framework, Strategic 006. The officer's recommendation that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Policy Governance Framework, Strategic 006, be adopted as presented. And you see there's some feedback there, financial and resource implications, no direct financial and resource implications, linked to corporate plan, and all that sort of stuff. So do we have a mover? Councillor Fryloff, seconder. Councillor Henshin, comments, questions, councillors? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. Just the policy looks good. I just wondered if it might be possible, perhaps a question through you for GM Susan or Carolyn, just around some of the changes here. If we could just have a bit of a review or discussion about the changes that have been made, that would be great. I can see there have been some significant changes.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Acting Mayor. Thanks, Councillor. This policy here sets out our governance framework. The biggest about the process of developing our policies and procedures, but I'll hand over to Manager Carolyn shortly. But the biggest The improvements here or additions to the policy have been the procedures in the forms. So the last one was our framework is about how we develop our policies, which is our higher level directive. And then our procedure is the step-by-step process, how we actually implement that procedure. And then the forms are the action items that supplement the procedure. But I'll just hand it over to Manager Carolyn if she's got anything additional to add.
Thank you, GM Susan. Thank you. Through you, Mr Acting Mayor. Yes, Councillor, it's strengthening the policy to add in the procedures and forms and to also provide some greater clarity around timeframes and process to embed that in the policy, so it strengthens the policy and then flows through to our procedure, actually, which underpins this policy. So generally strengthening up the process. We're 12 months into the changes and just giving us some opportunity to review that.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I think it just demonstrates the maturity of our governance processes, so fully supportive of this policy. I did have a good read of it, and it's quite comprehensive and appropriate, I think, for what we are trying to achieve, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor, and agree with those words. It's a good policy. Okay, so we have the adoption. What's that on there? Can you just roll that down to me? Yeah. Adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Policy Governance Framework Strategic 006. Committee recommendation. Moved by Councillor Farlow, seconded by Councillor Henson, that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Policy Governance Framework Strategic 006 be adopted as presented. All those in favour? Danita? Oh, Councillor Potter? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, 7.4, the adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Employee Code of Conduct, Statutory 011. The summary there, Council actively supports, encourages and develops its employees to work safely, be customer focused, use technology and Council assets effectively, adapt to change, improve their own capabilities and contribute to developing and achieving the objectives within Council's corporate and operational plans. The officer's recommendation that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Employee Code of Conduct Statutory 011 be adopted as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, seconder, Councillor Henson. Questions, comments, councillors? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I can see the policy's been updated to reflect Council's vision as per the corporate plan. The South Burnett unique communities working together in a strong and vibrant region, and also Council's purpose, South Burnett Regional Council making a positive difference in the people's lives through the quality of work we do. And our values have been upgraded too, our values of honesty, respect, accountability, integrity and unity. And I think it's really important that those prompt changes have been made to our employee code of conduct and acknowledge the work the staff have done to do that. I just noticed the significant changes for me was around the conflicts of interest and the gifts and benefits, and I can see the intent from those changes is to simplify the policy, which I think is always very important. There shouldn't be jargon or complicated sentencing in there. I just wanted to confirm though, in terms of the conflict of interest, we have got another specific conflict of interest policy as well that works with this one. So just wanted to confirm that, and I guess just offer the opportunity for any further comments from GM Susan or Manager Carolyn in relation to this policy. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. I might dive in. This one's mine, if I can. Councillor, and thanks for the comments. So yes, you're exactly correct. The policy works in accordance with the Code of Conduct as an overarching document for every staff member. Very much appreciate your comments on the jargon because it applies from everyone from myself through to the casuals and the library to the grader operator, the Parks and Gardens mower. It impacts every staff member we have, no matter what form of engagement that we have with them. So it needs to be a document that's clearly understood. It was one that we've had on 2013, so it absolutely needed a refresh and a modernisation. One of the things, actually, I was going to give a plug, I suppose, for want of a better term, but the Joint Consultative Committee, which was born out of the EBA last year. Council hasn't had one, and as we've opened up some of these processes and dare I say, shine a little bit of light on them as well. We have representatives, delegates from every union plus staff delegates attend that meeting, and it's been going very, very well. We don't always agree, but it actually affords us the opportunity to run all these core documents, particularly as far as that impact staff members, through that forum, and then we get feedback or advice back from the relevant unions. So those boxes not only are ticked, but it's actually a really good engagement process. So the JCC is working exceptionally well in this space, and good faith bargaining. All parties are coming to the JCC in good faith, and so far so good. As I said, we don't always agree, but the meetings have been very constructive and extremely positive. Yeah, conflict of interest, absolutely. It works in conjunction with those. We've tried, well, not tried to, we've brought it up to standard with the current industrial instruments and the current EB. So this document should never be left sit for this extended period of time again, and it will go through its regular and annual updates, as well as getting that external review through the Joint Consultative Committee.
Yeah, thank you, CEO Mark. I can see how much work has gone into this policy. It really does. Any of the touch points across council's business have been considered, and it's great to hear about the work you're doing with the JCC and those positive relationships going forward. So, no, I don't have anything further. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker, and thanks, Mr CEO, for your explanation there in regards to the policy that we have in front of us. So we'll go now to the committee. Sorry, Councillor Duff.
I just wanted to support Councillor Shoemaker, and I just wanted to say how proud I am of our council's vision, the South Burnett unique communities working together in a strong and vibrant region, and also the council's purpose, South Burnett Regional Council making a positive difference in people's lives through the quality of work we do. I think that that's a fantastic vision and purpose in our corporate plan. It's good to see that in the employee code of conduct, and if we all live up to that standard, councillors included, I think we have a positive future as we move forward. So I just wanted to flag those two really, really important parts of this code of conduct. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Very well said. And I think when we presented that those comments and that phrase to the staff, Mr CEO, it was well received, and I think everybody's well and truly on board with that to provide that to the community. So we'll now go to the adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Employee Code of Conduct Statutory 011. The committee recommendation, moved by Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Henson, that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Employee Code of Conduct Statutory 011 be adopted as presented. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. 7.5, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Information Privacy Policy, Statutory 038. The summary, South Burnett Regional Council is strongly committed to and will take all reasonable steps to protect the privacy of individuals by ensuring that the collection, use, disclosure and handling of all personal information by Council complies with the Information Privacy Act 2009 and other relevant legislation. The officer's recommendation that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Information Privacy Policy Statutory 038 be adopted as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconder, Councillor Potter. Questions, comments, councillors, before we go to the vote? Councillor Shoemaker.
I think I'm hogging the microphone today. Just wanted to acknowledge how important this policy is, because certainly I think through the reports that we've had, Mr CEO, you can clarify me with the specific number of correspondence that Council issued last year. It's extensive, hundreds and hundreds of emails every single day, along with letters and telephone calls in the thousands. I think it's really important that it's great to see this concerted effort on protecting everybody's privacy and upholding those legislative requirements, and really what I liked about this policy was the simplicity of it. So well done, I think. And yes, it's certainly an important area for council. Can get into a lot of trouble if we breach the guidelines of this policy. So I'm fully supportive of the policy as it's presented. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. No other comments before we go to the vote? We go to the committee recommendation, moved by Councillor Duff, seconded by Councillor Potter, that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Information Privacy Policy Statutory 038 be adopted as presented. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. I've just been reminded I forgot the obligatory comments at the start of the meeting, councillors, for phones and computers to be locked up and put away while it's during the meeting, so I apologise for not mentioning that at the start of the meeting. So if we could do that, that would be great. Okay, 7.6, sorry. Adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Information Management Record Keeping Policy, Statutory 039. The summary there, the implementation of best practice information management practices enables South Burnett Regional Council to capture, maintain and protect the accuracy and reliability of its records for as long as they are required to support business, regulatory, social and cultural needs. The officer's recommendation that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Information Management Record Keeping Policy, Statutory 039, be adopted as presented. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconded Councillor Froloff. Comments, questions, councillors? Councillor Duff.
I just think this is a really important policy, particularly on the back of what happened after amalgamation, and some of the documents didn't get looked after, and we lost some of those documents that now the community are paying for because we can't find some of the old building and plumbing approvals. So I'm really keen to see this one tabled, accepted and carried through. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor. And that's fair comments. We've been dealing with a couple of those issues of late, which we're trying to work through, and I think we'll get a result eventually. Any other comments, councillors, before we go to the vote? Okay, so the committee recommends, moved by Councillor Duff, seconded by Councillor Froloff, that the South Burnett Regional Council Information Management Record Keeping Policy, Statutory 039, be adopted as presented. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. 7.7, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Community Engagement Policy, Statutory 050 and Community Engagement Strategy. The summary, the South Burnett Regional Council is committed to effective and appropriate community engagement, recognising that it is essential in making good decisions through listening and responding to community needs. Council also recognises its obligations under the Local Government Act 2009. This policy and strategy are not intended to replace decision-making responsibility, but enable Council to improve its decision-making processes for corporate planning, services and major projects. The officer's recommendation that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Community Engagement Policy Statutory 050 and the South Burnett Regional Council Community Engagement Strategy Guide and Tools be adopted as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, seconder. We have a seconder, Councillor Potter. Comments, questions, Councillor Duff.
So I'd like to move a procedural motion that lay on the table until the ordinary meeting on the 25th of August, and as in the absence of the Mayor.
Do we have a seconder? What happens if we don't want?
So no, I think, sorry, I've jumped the gun. I was thinking of the media relations policy, sorry.
Okay, so that's been withdrawn. So we are dealing with the current adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Community Engagement Policy, Statutory 050 and Community Engagement Strategy. Any questions, comments, councillors? The recommendation has been moved by Councillor Shoemaker. Sorry, didn't see you.
No, you're right, Deputy Mayor Jones. I just, this is a a really important activity of council. I know this council takes its engagement with the community very seriously, and we actively try to engage, particularly around decisions that have an impact on members of the community and a significant impact. And we also like to gather feedback. It's been fabulous being in the mall and around the street with Councillor Potter over these last couple of months, talking about the KTP project, of course, in a very defined community engagement process, but the other information that council actually collects during that process has been really valuable. I know for me, the insights in having those conversations on the street that we have every day are really important. I can see this community engagement policy is really around specific engagement that council has developed and aimed to integrate into its processes. And I can see we've focused on the IAP2 model, which is fabulous. I just wanted to understand, in terms of training opportunities or professional development opportunities around community engagement and specifically, communication roles, are we sending staff or do we participate in IAP2 training across the business is probably a question I'd like some information on. CEO Mark, if you're able to provide that.
Yeah, or probably going back 2 years, we probably haven't done anything specific in AAP2 for about 2 years easily, without sounding like everyone who blame COVID, but just the training models have been disrupted a little bit, bar the online. Before that, we had, particularly through local government managers, we've had, I'm trying to think of the program, Susan. Anyway, a couple of the programs, Propeller and what's the other one, where we've sent a lot of people to? Sorry? Propeller, Future Leaders, and those sorts of, so it's been folded into like as part of a component of an extended course that staff have been through. Coming back to that training, couldn't agree more. Training is absolutely essential in this space, and I would acknowledge Coordinator Wilson and the exec team, media team that put the draft guidelines and tools. First cab off the rank was one of the first cabs off the rank, and as a good old sausage machine working, was the style guide. So we have a consistent basis going forward and labelling of the public notices and a range of things like that. This one now will complement that as far as equipping the staff with a set of tools and expectations that we want to see delivered. So call it a standard operating environment. Now, it won't fit every contingency. You always get the what ifs, but what we will have now in this space is a set of standard tools we can roll out across the organisation. So this is the expectation as the base minimum. This is what we desire. So the strategy and tools are an important component of this going forward, as well as maintaining the policy up to date. And certainly, absolutely and 100% agree that the training is essential going forward.
Councillor Duff.
Yes, I just I jumped the gun and missed it. I had my two turned around the other way. So just on this one, I think the one thing that I think is missing here is in step 3, determining the level of impact. It doesn't clearly state who determines that level of impact, and I think that I'd like to move an amendment with the inclusion of a clause after step 3 that for matters of strategic or community significance, including all capital expenditure projects and major operational works that are likely to impact on the community or give rise to community concern, council is to be consulted in determining the level of impact. So I think that's so I'd just like to put that as an amendment. I can just give that to...
Councillor, just a question with that, and certainly, but with all capital works programs, so if it's all capital, you will just grind to a halt. Yeah, so I'm just wondering about the word all against capital. Certainly follow the intent of the strategic and the big ones, but so we go to reseal a car park that's under capital, you would be, anyway, so I suppose if we could
I think
grab your wording, it'd be handy.
Yeah,
thanks.
I think we need to have it in there because I know a lot of the projects, it makes or breaks them if we have that good consultation and where's that line? So that's why I said all capital expenditure projects, but I mean,
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
Yeah. Again, it's just
I'm happy for you to help me tweak
yeah,
it. but
if you could,
That's the intent. It's
if we
just-
could grab your wording, that'd be grand. Thank
So,
you.
yeah, I'll just give it to you.
So, if you are taking suggestions, including just for the purposes of, and again, I'm probably don't want instead of all, including any capital expenditure programs or major operational works that may impact on community or that are likely to impact. Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll give rise to your level of community concern. So I'm sealing the car park in Rural and the person across the street is concerned. Does that define community concern? That's probably, anyway, yeah, I'm just trying to work out how we'd make that work practically. No, not arguing the intent of it, it just, yeah. But anyway, yeah, so any capital expenditure programs or major operational works, is that fine?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, CEO. The only issue is that where's the line there? Who determines that? It's just tricky with that.
My concern is if we have all capital expenditure programs and we have to consult council, we consult council on the capital program when we bring it to budget. The capital program will slow to a grind. That's just being blunt. It will just whatever's put forward. If you say all capital, you will just grind the place to a halt.
I'm just wondering, I'm just talking about the logistics of it. Would it be possible after the budget that we went through all of the capital projects and the grant money and just went through and just said, just as a workshop and just went that which ones we thought needed consultation and which ones we didn't as a team, rather than just ad hoc? Would that be something that we could do moving forward? Because I really do think that a lot of these projects, and it can be a fairly small one, but it can be significant to the community. And if we could flag that, that's a really significant one, it might not seem like it is, but we know that the feelings of the community. So I just, what would be the thoughts around having a workshop on all those projects and just saying, yes or no as far as our consultation? Is that possible? Well, keen to hear the views of everyone else.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I understand, Councillor Duff, the intent of what you're trying to say, but I actually don't support this inclusion the way in which it's written, because I feel it's already reflected in the tools and guidelines and in the policy itself. There's a couple of things like I'm thinking is every single report that council gets, there's always the officer's recommendation, the financial resources, the link from a strategic point of view to the corporate or operational plan, and then there's the communication and consultation report in every single report that's tabled before council. So before we make a decision, we can always be aware of what conversations or what consultation, internal and external, has already happened, and then make informed decisions based on that. I do think also in the policy, you know, it says on, I'm on page 74, you know, the general information, I think, is in true spirit of what council tries to achieve with its engagement. Council recognises, you know, council is committed to the development of a culture within the organisation which enables appropriate community participation in its decision-making processes. Council recognises that not all community engagement is formal and can be planned. Informal engagement, in which council representatives are routinely involved in, is a valuable tool to encourage community participation in our decision-making processes. And I'd probably argue that that's our jobs as representatives of the people. The third point is this policy recommends a flexible approach to how the community is engaged and recognises that different levels of engagement will be required depending on the complexity and sensitivity of individual circumstances. And then it goes on. But certainly, if you've had a look through the guidelines, the guides and tools, which is fabulous for community engagement, and certainly in my many previous roles, having a tool book like this would have been excellent, I can say. I think this is pretty comprehensive. It goes through the phases of actually setting what are the objectives of the engagement and the scope. It goes through identifying the stakeholders with a proper stakeholder analysis, determining step 3 on page 80, Councillor Duff, actually goes through to determine what level of consultation, because as the policy has said, we need a flexible approach and not every level of consultation is the right fit. If we were to go and actually have conversation or set up a workshop or discussion about everything, I fear nothing would get done. Like different levels of consultation are appropriate for different levels of projects and different subjects depending on what the desired outcome is and who will be impacted by that. And I've picked that up in these tools and guidelines that we're actually going to roll out and train our staff in, as CEO Mark has said. So on page 80, it works through the different levels from low, medium to high level of impact and engagement required, from the inform, consult, involve, collaborate or empower phase. And those, you know, need to be targeted based on what outcome. If it's a, in my view, if it's a public notice, we are just informing. If it's an advisory group, like your Parks and Gardens advisory group that you're wanting to establish, it's really about empowering the community, making them part of the decision-making process. So the consultation in that space would be very different to a public notice, for instance. And I think that's clearly laid out in the guidelines. And then on page 81, which I think is the intent of what you're saying, but it's a much more in-depth overview of how that might look in practice. We've got the levels of impact, both high, medium and low, and you'll see through that, you know, the criteria. So a high level impact, so a project, an example's been the Kingroy Transformation Project. You know, there's a high level of impact of risk, perceived or real, on the South Burnett region or sections of communities. There is potential for decisions to create controversy and or have varying levels of acceptance within the community. So it's great to have this toolbook when our staff are working on projects. They can identify, well, this project probably does meet that high level impact. And the criteria, you know, they'll work through there. Does it have a significant impact on attributes considered to be high value to the community, lifestyle of physical or environment, you know, likely to have high level of interest from across the South Burnett, potential for high level of controversy. And then it works through the appropriate engagement method, model and tools, and the timelines and budgets to meet that. And the most important thing I think that we really do as a council need to concentrate on is our evaluation and monitoring process at the very end. I don't think we do that very well. We're jumping from one project to another and we're not always learning the lessons from the past. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that space in my first 12 months here. But all in all, I think this policy and the tools that we've been provided is really thorough, and I think it does position our community. Our community should have confidence in council's process, and I think throughout the process, the intent of what you're actually proposing is strawn all the way through the policy, the guidelines, and the protocol. So I'm not actually supportive of pulling out this one specific thing, because I recognise council is a complex and integrated system of processes, and I think the policy as it stands is true and correct, and I wouldn't want to muddy with the intent of council's policy. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Is there any other comments? Councillor Duff, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we've had these graphs in for quite a long time. What I'm concerned about is who decides the level of impact. And in the past, we've had, even in the last 12 months and in your first year of a budget, Councillor Shoemaker, I know that there was issues around like the shade shelters in the parks, because the staff they had already ordered some, and I think we had to stop some of the orders because we wanted a different look. The swings, and I know that in, say, for example, Apex Park, you have a vision to have all this all wooden and beautiful park equipment, whereas if we just put that we're going to do a capital project of upgrading the swings at Apex Park, the council staff may just well put the plastic version, because that's just what we've done right across the region. So what I'm trying to do is to get those capital projects tweaked so that where we think that we need to do something different, that it just doesn't, it's not just the status quo. And a lot of times, even like what you had proposed at Apex Park, I love that idea, but where would you have had the chance to do that, and where would the community have had the chance to consult on that? Because the staff would automatically assume that we're upgrading the swings, so we just do it the way we've always done it. So I'm actually in this one trying to help your vision to make this a really livable area, and to just make those things, tweak those particular capital projects where we've got a vision, and in some respects, the staff and you can't, the staff they just assume that we just want to do the swings the same in every town, for example. So that's why I just think that at some point we need to determine who decides on that level of impact. So that's why I was really keen to get something in this policy to change what's currently happening.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Before we go any further, we need a seconder for this to enable us to have any discussion. So Councillor Duff's moved that with the adjustment. Do we have a seconder before we go any further and continue the conversation? Does anyone want to second that recommendation?
Do we need to?
Yeah, we need a seconder, yeah.
I'll second that.
Councillor Potter, seconded by Councillor Potter. Okay, so comments and questions, Councillor Potter?
Yep, I understand where Councillor Duff's coming from, but I think there has been a real change within council this last 12 months in particular. And I think with regards to, as Councillor Shoemaker was saying, with regards to the community engagement strategy, the guides and tool sheet there, which is in a draft format at the moment, I think that that's actually very particular in the way it works and the way that it takes into account particular stakeholders and the varying levels of impact that it will have on community members. So I totally agree with Councillor Shoemaker on this, and yeah, so I'll be voting against this recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Potter. Councillor Henson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, we get giddy here sometimes, don't we? Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Duff, I take both your comments on board, but certainly within the 12 months of the new council, and as Councillor Potter has just alluded to, I think we've come a huge way, and I think it's a little unfair to say that the staff expect we're just going to put a plastic swing in here or a particular swing in there when our general managers and our managers underneath them and the consultation we have, and I read down in number 3, you know, inform, consult, involve, collaborate and empower. Holy Ghost, haven't we done a fair bit of that in the last 12 months? And we're continuing to do so. But with that in mind, we've got to be very careful and mindful of the fact we can communicate until the cows come home, and that's where we get giddy. So I can certainly appreciate Councillor Duff and Councillor Shoemaker and Potter's comments on this, but I think this document and the work that's gone into it, and I read it and I think, gee whiz, well, we have come a long way and look what we're doing, and we are continuing to, with all the projects we've got and the grant and the funding that we've received, where we sit down and try and pinpoint where and what we go and what we do with that. So I think we are kicking goals, and as far as to complicate or drag this out anymore, we will continue to just get giddy. So yeah, I'm very impressed and happy with where this document sits at the moment. It is a work in progress, and that work has been shown over the last 12 months with this new council, and I'm positive we will continue to improve. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Hanchin. Councillor Shoemaker, and then we'll go to Councillor Duff for right of reply, and then we'll go to the vote.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Duff. I hear what you're saying, and I understand your view. However, I do think we have to be careful that I think what I'd like to understand from you in your closing comments is where in this policy does what you're proposing there not already come out for you? Because I can see what you're proposing has already been considered and is drawn through the policy itself and through the guidelines. I'm probably just confused in terms of, I understand what you're trying to achieve, and I think we're all on the same page trying to achieve the very same thing. And I think your intention here of adding this to the guide and tool is very much what's already included. Is it for you, do you need this to be more, I'm not sure the wording, or, you know, if there's more feedback, I'm happy to consider it, but I just don't see how this actually strengthens or bolsters the policy, because I believe we're already achieving what you've highlighted here through the intent of this policy. And I'm mindful we're talking about a policy and a toolbook here. I think some of the things you're talking about is project planning. You know, who decides on a capital project the level of consultation? Well, I believe that's us, our council here. And I believe when those projects and budget conversations and the plans and the designs and the many conversations that we have around a project are brought forward, that we are doing just that. So I'm probably confused as to why, you know, if you feel strongly that we need more consultation around capital expenditure projects and major operational works, then I believe we need to have those discussions in here like we regularly do and decide which for ourselves. This toolbook is a great guide for us as well as councillors around what level of consultation we're going to approve. So I think I'll be keeping a copy of this with me during every council meeting and deciding through the discussions we have around project management around what level of consultation is appropriate. I think this is it's a good policy. I think the community should have confidence in council's genuine need and desire to engage with its community. And for me, my closing question or statement to you is, please show me in this policy where this, the intent of your recommendation isn't already addressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Duff, right of reply, and then we go to the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Yeah, no, all of these levels of community engagement, all of those like level 3, level 2, level 1, 100% across all that. But with this policy, to me, there's a breakdown, and I've seen it for the last 17 years of my council career, that when we put the projects forward and we're excited about the projects, there's a breakdown in communication sometimes between the expectation of what council thinks needs to happen and what the staff see as happening. So we don't, and sometimes when we get the report, some of those decisions on, like I say, about the swings or the shade shelters have already been decided, because we've just said, here's some money and this is the project. And then the staff would go, well, we think that this is a level 2, but where do we get together with the general managers, if you like, and say, well, this particular project, we think it's a level 3 or whatever, because that's where the breakdown is, and this has been going on for a very, very long time. And I was very frustrated when these levels of impact were in train when it happened last year, when we stopped some of those orders because they were different to what we believed needed to happen. So I'm really keen to get that coordination before the project starts as to what is the level of impact, the determination, and what level of consultation, if any. So it's not just about with the community, it's also about the expectation of councillors having spoken to the community and what the community really would like to see happen. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Duff. So we'll go to the vote now, and what we're voting on, councillors, is it's been moved by Councillor Duff, seconded by Councillor Potter, that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Community Engagement Policy Statutory 050 and the South Burnett Regional Council Community Engagement Strategy, Guide and Tools be adopted as amended, with the inclusion of a clause at step 3 as follows: for matters of strategic or community significance, including any capital expenditure projects or major operational works that are likely to impact on the community or give rise to community concern, Council is to be consulted in determining the level of impact. Those in favour? Councillor Duff. Those against? Councillor Potter, Henson, Froloff, Shoemaker and Jones. The recommendation has been defeated 5 votes to 1. So we then go back to the original recommendation, which is that the South Burnett Regional Council Community Engagement Policy Statutory 050 and the South Burnett Regional Council Community Engagement Strategy, Guide and Tools be adopted as presented. So do we have a mover? Oh, sorry, we've got it. Yeah, we've already got it there. Sorry. Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Potter. Questions again? So, yeah, open it up to the floor. Comments, questions before we go to the vote? Okay, all those in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Shoemaker.
Can you not see me over here, Councillor?
Yes, my apologies.
No, you're right. I just wanted to sum up. I hear what you're saying, Councillor Duff. I think some of what you're saying is around project management and the framework around project management. And I know there's a lot of work happening in that space separate to this policy. I can certainly hear your frustration around the breakdown in communication over the 17 years you've been in council. Outside looking in, I recognise and respect that you've been here for 17 years. So, I am green and new at this, but I can also recognise that I can see where that happens, and I can see that's why I have pointed out the real importance for me. The most important thing around community engagement is actually checking in and evaluating how you're going and taking the learnings from that experience into the next experience. And certainly with the Kingaroy Transformation Project, I feel like I've learned a lot. And I think we all as councillors and as staff need to work together. I think it's council's role to be strategic and to set the tone, but we also need to have the trust and confidence and working relationship with our staff to actually see the objectives delivered in our community. And we've got to be careful that in some instances, we're not trying to micromanage a project or step over the confines of what a councillor's role actually is in representing their community. I do feel we get ample opportunity to provide feedback around what level of consultation is required, and I do feel that this policy in its true form and the tools and guidelines really does set our organisation up for success, and it does also set us as councillors up for success. I do not have an issue with the policy the way it is presented, and I'd like to congratulate the staff on the work that's been done. And really, for me, the focus will be, supporting CEO Mark, leaning in and ensuring the training and the rollout of this policy does actually achieve the desired outcome. So I'm supportive of this policy as it stands. I do think some of what you're talking about is project management, and I do know council is undergoing a significant project in that space. So I'm supportive of the project, this policy and the tools as they stand, and I really do hope to see council's commitment to that evaluation monitoring, taking the learnings from the past into the future. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Before we go to the vote, any other? Councillor Duff?
Yeah, I'm just speaking against the policy in it as it is on the grounds that I have already put forward, that I think that there is a big breakdown in communication on who decides on the level of impact. That's what our frustration is. It's okay to say project management, but that project management is organised by the staff, and I know from my experience as portfolio holder for Parks and Gardens, the staff get very, very frustrated because they go and roll out a project and it's not the vision and hopes and dreams of the council. So somewhere along the line we need to work out where that discussion is going to happen, or we will go down the same path, because if we keep doing the same thing, we will get the same results. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Okay, so we now go to the committee recommendation, moved by Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Potter, that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Community Engagement Policy Statutory 050 and the South Burnett Regional Council Community Engagement Strategy Guide and Tools be adopted as presented. All those in favour? Councillor Potter, Henson, Froloff, Shoemaker, Jones. Against? Councillor Duff. The recommendation is successful 5-1. Okay, 7.8, and keeping in mind, councillors, we've got an engagement at the RSL for Vietnam Veterans Day at 10:30. So we move on to 7.8, the adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Media Relations Policy Strategic 001. The officer's recommendation that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Media Relations Policy Strategic 001 version A, B or C be adopted as presented. Councillor Duff.
So now's my turn, sorry. I just wanted to move a procedural motion that this lay on the table until the ordinary meeting on the 25th of August, given that the absence of the Mayor, and this is his portfolio. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Potter. Okay, so that's a procedural, so we go straight to the vote on that. So we have a motion that this agenda item 7.8 of the South Burnett Regional Council Media Relations Policy Strategic 001 be laid on the table until the August General. All those in favour? Councillor Duff, Councillor Shoemaker. All those against? Councillor Potter, Henson, Froloff and Jones. All was Councillor Duff, Councillor Shoemaker. So, Mr. CEO, we go back to the recommendation. We The CEO has just informed me we're seeking direction on what version. We have 3 versions, A, B and C. That the South Burnett Regional Council Media Relations Policy Strategic 001, version A, B or C be adopted as presented. I will open it up now to the floor. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. Just a question for CEO Mark, just regarding process. Is it possible to actually discuss each of these versions before we come to a recommendation? And noting that we do have that function at 10:30, is it possible to leave, to actually leave while we're having that discussion until a recommendation is made?
Councillor, standing committees, we tend to take that flexibility, so general discussion before something's moved, yes. As far as when the meeting's adjourned, the meeting adjourns at the point in debate and it's picked up when we resume, so certainly yes.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor Jones, if it's possible, I'd really like to unpack and understand. I understand the Mayor is away. However, I know I provided extensive feedback on this report, and I can see Councillor Duff has done the same, as has Mayor Otto. So I'd just really like to work through that as a team, if we can, to understand what is the best way forward, and why some of these some of the feedback was provided. So if that's all right with you, I'd like to have a discussion about the different policies and the changes that have been presented.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with that. Mr. CEO, I'll be guided by you on this one, keeping in mind that we have to be at another function in 15 minutes. So what's the procedure from here?
Councillors, well, I suppose if I start with overarching, I'll just bring up the coloured version of the agenda, which I have here. If we can just run through the report. So we did receive, as well as, and there was verbal comments as well, which aren't so easy to capture. The reason we have ended up in, I'll state in my thoughts, in my opinion, the reason we've ended up in this space is that there seems to be a divergence of where to go with this. Standing committees, it's been presented to the standing committee so we can sort of get some direction to take it back to the ordinary meeting, and as part of process now of allowing for this discussion. I don't want to waste time by going through. So the communications on page 91, we've got the various communications. We certainly met with the Mayor and discussed. So Mayor's feedback and discussions at that point was pretty much the policy that was circulated as the draft for consultation. Councillor Duff, really appreciated her. Councillor Duff certainly did put in a fair degree of comment, which is on page 91, 92. And then, mine's a different pages, sorry. No, 91, 92, no, well, I think, okay, if a page number is incorrect, my apologies, yeah. I'm just reading off, I saved my PDF version last Friday, so. Then Councillor Shoemaker, again, very much appreciate the feedback we had, extensive, so we've just, rather than try to put that into the table in the report, we've just replicated it in full. So version 1 is the draft effectively that was circulated in May 2021. And I'm on page 93, so it would be similar to version 2 is based on, is an attempt to try and meld the various viewpoints that and feedback that came back, and version 3 is Councillor Shoemaker's written submission. There's a couple of fundamental points that probably would like to make, and councillors have heard me. As far as the policy, we would be the same as, in the current policy, the same as, and I suppose these are the overarching. The Mayor is the official spokesperson of council. That's my position, and would always be. I think if I'm hearing the variety of information we're getting back, is that there would degree of flexibility for councillors, hence what I call version 2, a degree of flexibility for councillors to speak on their individual portfolio area. Now, other councillors may have different ideas, and I'm not going to preempt any of that debate, but the version 2 of the document was an attempt to sort of meld a practical working solution to, and if we, well, we can go through each of the ones page by page if you want. But the difference in different philosophy as well as the approval process. The mayor actually, and quite rightly, did question, I think it's 3113, the approval process. And I'll just speak to that now. The Chief Executive Officer or Delegated Officer must approve all council media releases. That line hasn't, and I responded directly back to the mayor, that line hasn't changed in any of the versions of the policies going back. The day-to-day operational stuff that picks up, and for the files and the record keeping and everything else, my recommendation to council isn't to change that or add another line to it. That's basically the last line of the, dare I say it, the bureaucratic process of ensuring as much as we can, well, not ensuring as much as we can, but ensuring information's kept on file. There is a myriad of public notices, social media information, day-to-day stuff that just runs without any discussion, debate, inform the community, fits within the policy guidelines and just churns out every day. So I would be reluctant to change that line, my request, because that does allow me to continue to progress information that needs to be required. And it's certainly not diminishing anyone else's role in this. But that's just a practical delegation, which I do use daily. As I said, there was a fair degree of debate about one of the questions had if a media representative approached a councillor, the councillor should have the right to speak. There are, looking at policies across the state, there is a different way that's presented in each different council, and hence, without sounding like I'm not trying to make a recommendation or a decision, that's probably the direction as where we're going as to what we're seeking from the chamber as to where you want to go. But certainly, I reiterate, our council, the same as every council in Queensland, the mayor is the official spokesperson of council. So I hope that clear as mud helps a bit.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. We'll take a couple of comments. We are due to leave, so if you can keep them brief. Do we need to? It's 10:20. We need to be at the RSL at 10:30. Can we? Is everybody happy just to leave it and then we come back?
Yeah, I was just going to move to adjourn. Yes.
Okay. So, Councillor Potter, do you wish to move to adjourn? Seconder for that, Councillor Froeloff. All those in favour? Thank you. So we'll resume after the Vietnam Veterans Day service at the RSL. At what time we get back, can't guarantee. We will try and get back at a reasonable hour, Mr. CEO. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
to keep the mayor informed, because as the CEO said, the mayor is the official spokesperson. So I just think we need to have a position where the mayor can be right across what's happening. So we still get the absolute say on our portfolios, but we just keep the mayor, keep the conversation happening with the mayor so that he can be across what the portfolio holders are doing. So that's just was my thoughts on those three amendments, but I just was very keen on that version 2. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I've got a couple of thoughts here. With regards to the scope in version 3, which is number 2 in version 3, which is probably page 104. I really like the idea of that scope. If you have a read through the scope of the policy, I'd really like that to be in version 2. I like a mixture of version 2 and 3, to be quite honest. It's not, if we're going to choose version 2, I'd like some of version 3 to be actually in version 2. This may take some time. Okay, so if we can move the number 2 scope up to version 2 from version 3, and also with regards to some of the items in 3.1.1.1 and 3.1.1.2 and 3.1.1.3, there's some few items within those particular ones that I'd like to see moved up to version 2. Thank you.
So, Councillor, can you identify the actual items that you want brought up at the minute, or do you just want the whole of 3112 and 3113?
I would actually, when you read through this in version 3, it's actually, when you read through it, Acting Mayor, it's really quite in-depth. It's very easy to read, and I think if we can move those versions up to version 2, to read, and I think move those versions up to version 2, I'd be very happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I just probably have a question in relation to Councillor Duff in the point of contact and in relation to when the Swickers fire was on. Can I ask Councillor Froloff, and we're going back some years to that, the process then, and this is just a particular, because Councillor Duff has brought it up, with the local disaster management, how much has that improved since the Swickers fire, and what's been implemented since then as far as point of contacts? I would imagine, with what I've seen and been involved with local disaster management, that is certainly escalated to a much higher and better level of communication with that disaster management.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Yes, when the Swickers fire happened, the chair of the LDMG was the mayor then, Keith Campbell, so he was the port of call. He was the spokesperson that got all the information out there. I believe that the LDMG chair, like if there's a disaster here with the LDMG that we have, should be the one that fronts the media and gives the information, because we'll be on the front foot with all this.
Councillor Duff, can I just ask you to go back to where you raised the political sensitive or anything like that, that the Mayor and the CEO can have a chat and discuss that? Because I think that ties in with what the comments are from Councillor Froloff and Henson, in the fact that I would think that that is already would be normal practice, and along with the local disaster management chair and the CEO and the mayor, I would like to think that that would probably be taking place now, Mr. CEO. Would that be a fair comment? And come back to Councillor Duff in regards to the recommendation that she was about to make. Go to you, CEO, first.
Okay, so just so I understand the question, if it's not controversial, not that part, but if it's a matter of emergency or political sensitive, yeah, there should be, probably best way to answer it, yes, is would consult with the mayor. If it gets put into the policy, it's not going to make any difference because it is standard practice. So I've got no issue with it. And then with all the discussion about the approval process, so the public notices, the social media, those sorts of things, and to a degree, you guys employ me on judgment. A lot of the stuff that I don't send through the mayor is that it's just waterworks happening on Street X tomorrow night at 9:15. Public knows, bang, goes out. All current media releases that go through, we put through the mayor as a matter of course, as any case. So to gain the feedback and any comments. So yeah, it's the bit where I was going before is, and I'm probably going to use this language, I still require the delegation because there is such day-to-day business that just has to be done. So so that's the bit I didn't want to lose, because otherwise, again, it'll just create more blockages and not, blockages is probably the wrong word, but it'll slow getting just basic information out. And I don't think that's what the councillor was talking about, no.
That's right, sorry, yeah. Did you want me to respond on that?
Yeah, just revisit the recommendation you made in regards to that, councillor.
Yeah, I just said that if there is an emergency or the matter is controversial, the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer will discuss the issue beforehand and designate a single point of contact, and that may be the Local Disaster Management Chair, but that's just, and I think as the CEO said, that's happening as a matter of course, but I just thought we could add that because I noticed that Toowoomba Regional Council has that in there as a clause. So I just thought, well, that just covers off on that then, there's no confusion.
Yeah, thanks, councillor. So would you object if, with that wording, if we added the Local Disaster Management Chair to that?
Oh, good with that, yes, 100%.
Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I myself would like to, I think more work needs to be done to blend the intention of version 2 and version 3 together, and bolster version 2 if that's council's preferred version. I actually think there does need to be, for version 3, I agree with Councillor Potter around the scope. I also think just the requests, there's section 4, request to interview council representatives for news stories. 5, councillor participation at major events where media is present. And it should be 6, councillor participation in council paid advertising needs to be considered. And in version 2, I am concerned about the approvals process at the moment. I have had some experiences this past 12 months where I think, particularly in relation to the Kingaroy Transformation Project, where media releases and information hasn't flowed as quickly as it should, and that has blurred the message, the correct and factual, consistent message in the community that actually represents the intentions of council. I fully understand and appreciate that the mayor is the official spokesperson and support that. However, I do think in this political environment that the CEO is the person who is, I guess, very mindful of council's reputation and also ensuring that the message that is released to the media is not political in nature. It's actually representative of council's intentions. So my concern and what I've seen over these past 12 months, and certainly what's been concreted in some of the social media commentary around council business, has been, I have concerns that we need a tighter process whereby we can work with the CEO in our capacity as councillors Because at the moment, I have felt there have been instances where I should have been engaged and I haven't been, or where things have been choked up in the system. So I myself, I don't support either 3 as they are. I would like to see option 2 bolstered with a bit more clarity for councillors. I feel at the moment, like in some instances, you are walking on eggshells or you are not allowed to comment or provide information. And I don't want that to be the case going forward, which was the reason why I brought this back to the table in the first place. I do want to see clarity for councillors, and I do want to see an opportunity for all councillors. I do understand the Mayor is the spokesperson for council, and that is true and correct. I don't disagree with that. However, I do think councillors need to have more of an opportunity to be able to speak on matters relating to their portfolio or their divisions. And I think checking in with the CEO to confirm that the information that you've got is true and correct is suffice. I know some of my fellow councillors have actually tried to contact the Mayor and haven't had their calls answered or responded to. And in some instances, where media works 24/7 and it needs to be fast and the story can shift quickly, I think we need to have the confidence as councillors that we are allowed to comment and speak on matters relevant to council. None of us should be using council's media opportunities for political statements or slurs against our counterparts. Any opportunity to speak to the media should be about representing our region and representing our constituents and representing this council. And whilst we all may disagree at times, I fully respect the democratic process and that the decision of council is the one that stands, and that we all have a role to go out of this room and promote that decision. So at the moment, Deputy Mayor Jones, I don't support either 3 of these policies. I actually would like to see another version come back, a version 4, which has a blending of version 2 and 3 in the areas that I've identified here today. And I'm happy to move that as a recommendation unless there's more conversation that would like to be had.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker, and you made some very good points in that presentation as far as the media policy goes. I too personally would like to feel confident that when we do speak or have the opportunity or approached by media, that we can speak on our portfolios or any issues that is currently or we've spoken or endorsed in council meetings. Yes, you're certainly, if you don't agree with the decision and you're not part of the in favour in the chamber, you are entitled to your opinion, I believe, but we are all obligated to therefore move forward in a positive way. You can express your feelings, but I certainly don't. I certainly wouldn't be when I lose a decision in the chamber, I wouldn't go out and put something on Facebook to give all the naysayers a platform to be negative and bash council and all that. I just think that's wrong. So I would expect that if I was doing that, that the rest of the councillors would tap me on the shoulder and let me know that that's not to be the done thing. So me moving forward, I would like to also see a combination of the 2 and 3. I think option 1 is pretty much very close to what we currently operate under. So I think for me, I wouldn't support that, but certainly 2 and 3. With the approval process being given to the CEO, I think that if a councillor is approached on the street ad hoc and we answer or whatever we do to a response, I think suffice would be to notify the CEO of the conversation or the comments that were made, and I'm sure that he would pass on any comments if he had any concerns to the Mayor. I fully endorse that the Mayor be the spokesperson on anything politically sensitive or at the top level towards ministers or anything like that. I fully support the Mayor to be the spokesperson, but as far as the councillors, I would certainly like to see this be opened up so that councillors feel very confident that they can speak in a positive way and also express their opinion if they want, but in back council and put a more positive approach to what we're doing in the media. And I also, while we're going, I'd just like to comment on the comments made around the media releases that, particularly in the KTP, a good example. There was examples where media releases took what seemed forever to be put out there with some information and figures and facts and all that sort of stuff around the decisions that were made, and they seemed to be held up in the process 2 or 3 weeks, and then it just enabled people in the community, maybe with some misinformation or misunderstanding of comments, that certainly created a drama in the community that councillors had to go back and readdress that situation moving forward and answer questions that may not have needed to be answered. So I guess by what I'm hearing around the chamber, and we'll go back again, we'll continue this conversation. Option 1 seems to be not an option. It seems to be between options 2 and 3. Is that fair to say, councillors? So to minimise it, and the conversation now sort of stems around options 2 and 3 and how we blend them together. So again, we'll go back to that conversation after everyone's had an opportunity. So Councillor Duff.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that to address Councillor Shoemaker's concerns, that the CEO has put that clause in, that the clause is that councillors who chair a council authorised committee or a portfolio representative council are authorised to speak on that committee or portfolio. That's what they're authorised to speak. They're the spokesperson, is what you've flagged. So, but all I just added was where practical. So if you can't get the mayor, well, obviously you can't get the mayor, but it's just to give him the heads up so that we're all, as he's going to be the official spokesperson, we don't want the portfolio holder could be saying something that's different to the mayor. So that's why I just thought if those two could keep some sort of communication where practical, I added where practical, because I actually got that out of I've gone through all these different councils to get where I think where I believe we could go, and but I was really excited about having that clause that I agree with you, we need to be able to be spokespeople in our portfolios, but it was just to give that the mayor just the heads up. That's why I thought that one's, I don't really see why it's controversial or why you would need to, why that isn't what you want included in version 2. I can't see the difference between what you want and what's in version 2.
So just in response to the comments around that, Councillor Duff, in regards to our councillors keeping the mayor informed on what's going on, I would certainly like to think that the mayor would let us know, as well as councillors, that if he is meeting with ministers or anything like that, we do know that. And then if we are approached in the street, we can just, that would be an example of if we were asked blah, blah, or something about a minister and we knew that the mayor was organising meetings, we could certainly say, go and talk to the mayor because he's all over that. So that needs to work both ways, I think, yeah.
100% agree with you, yep.
Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Jones. I did also have somewhere in here, which I was just looking for. Now, I'm very mindful of how the media influences council's reputation. And in the instances, I thought I had made note in some of my comments, and it's probably staring me in the face, but I've got all of these pages here, so please help me if you see. But in the instances where you don't follow this policy, we want to understand the process there, because it's my view, each of us has a responsibility, the mayor included, in sharing the true and correct information. And I think I'd hate to see us get lost in our political statements and myths. So I'd like to understand from CEO Mark whether there is provision to put something in the policy around, you know, how the situation will be handled if you don't actually follow this policy. Like if you do behave in a way that's in contradiction to the Council of Code of Conduct, the behavioural standards of our Queensland Government behavioural standards, and if you actually make statements about council that aren't true or that are very politically driven, what's the process there for council to actually come back and say, not okay?
Okay, there's probably two different components to the answer. There has been cases that have gone through in this space. Failure to follow policy or council set directions, resolutions may be a breach, and then would go through its normal referral process if there was a complaint or it was clearly identified within reporting requirements. So that the breach of any policy, pretty much it's the stock standard process for without simplifying it down. As to is it a breach, isn't it a breach, does it cross a threshold, is there an assessment, is it inappropriate, is it misconduct, without labouring on it today, there's that whole process would just swing into action to assess whether it's a breach or not. Where the media policies, and it's not just this council, but councils across the state tend to run. Social media is its own beast these days, and people commenting individually. And then there's also, and I have seen it where things have been dismissed because they are considered robust political debate. So now I won't draw a line and say where I think or sit on that, because it really does vary on the context or the circumstance of the discussion. Deputy Mayor before referred, and several, I mean, councils are responsible for their own social media pages or comments in the public. A resolution or decision of council is entitled to their own opinion, but they need to be very clear that they're respecting the decision of council, and that also has its own, that's not just sometimes as simple as saying, oh, I respect, and then X. Each one of those cases is dealt with by different agencies on their own merits, should there ever be a complaint. But there is capacity, and there is also, I suppose, expectation, for want of a better word, that councils will engage in robust political debate. Now, what that looks like sometimes is what I might consider a fair and reasonable, robust political debate may be different to the Deputy Mayor or General Manager. It really is, this is where it gets very grey. Probably my contribution to the debate is, if it's a merging of 2 and 3, I would very much doubt we would do that justice between now and next week. And I'm also very conscious of not labouring it out longer than what it needs to be through my leave and others. It's already been pushed back a little bit. Most councils, and I would, for my advice over being around the years, and I'm not saying this is what anyone's saying, but there needs to be a framework around the media policy, because it is so public, and for councillors, all councillors and staff, that framework is actually there as much to assist and protect as it is to also give guidance on who to speak. So whatever council does, it should probably keep its whatever is adopted, but be cognizant of not going too laissez-faire with it. It is an area that does need its own structure around it. And I found over the years that having a clear structure does assist in everyone knowing where they stand.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. So we'll just give you one more chance to speak from the floor, and we will make a decision and go to the vote. So if there's any more comments around that, Councillor Duff.
So I just thinking that with if you had the version 2 and you just tweak those couple of points that have been made, would that not capture what we're trying to achieve here? It's basically that we want to be able to have the right to speak as on the portfolios, as to be the lead spokesperson, which is what is in that clause that the CEO has put in there. Then I just suggested that the Mayor be notified where practical, and that Deputy Mayor Jones has suggested that goes both ways. I don't have a problem with that. Then you've got the one about the emergency. I'm happy to add the chair of the disaster management be included in that discussion, then get one single point of contact. And then the other one is just the CEO notifying the mayor of politically sensitive media releases, which he's already doing. So I can't see that there's any need to labour this, because I think it's all pretty much covered off if we just tweak those amendments that I have suggested.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I just listening to what's being said, I'm thinking that my opinion only, but most of 3 with a portion of 2 added to 3 is sort of the feeling I'm getting. And Councillor Duff's comments just then added to 3, where the media, the mayor is a spokesperson, the CEO is the level that councillors need to go to get approval for or point of contact as far as media goes. Yeah, so that's taken into what Councillor Potter said earlier, 3113 and whatnot, and then Councillor Shoemaker 4, 5 and 6 on the back. Adding part of 2 to 3 seems to cover off, and taking in Councillor Duff's comments, if we were to do that on option 3. How does everyone, Councillor Duff?
So I'm absolutely opposed to that, the option 3, because what I noticed was that Councillor, with all due respect, that was just crossed out the mayor out of every, where the whole way through the mayor's name was, like the position of the mayor was deleted, and I think that the CEO has covered off on, and in option version 3, the mayor was not the official spokesperson, it was all of the council. So the CEO has absolutely declared that. I think that we need to be really careful here, that the mayor has been elected by the people to be the and he is automatically the spokesperson. I think that because he has been elected, and you can go through, I could not find any policy, and I went through as many as I could find in the time I had, where there wasn't the mayor as the media spokesperson. There's somewhere the council can be the lead on their portfolio, but then they had to consult the mayor, or even a lot of them, like Toowoomba, that the mayor can actually overrule that if he wants to. But the authority of the mayor and the respect of the mayor is really, really important, and I think that we need to be really careful about respecting the fact that the mayor has been elected by the whole of the region, and he is the leader and the official spokesperson, and I take exception to the tone of version 3 where the mayor's name was deleted, where the mayor's position was deleted in virtually every one of those dot points and clauses.
Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. Certainly, that's not the intent, Councillor Duff. The Mayor is a councillor just like the rest of us. And I do recognise he's been elected by the majority of the people in the South Burnett. Don't disrespect that at all. I respect their decision. However, what I have seen is that the current media flowchart and the supporting procedure that supports this media policy has been choking up our system. So The reason why I did get to a point where I did provide so much feedback on this policy was because I don't want to see that going forward. I believe that is causing our council reputational harm. I don't want to see processes choked up. And in some ways, I do, same as you and everybody else, my intent has always been freedom of speech, just like the Mayor has. I do recognise that he is the official spokesperson, and my recommendation is that we follow that line as per version 2. However, I too read a number of policies in putting together my feedback. I actually did that over the Christmas break, I think, or Easter break. Yes, there are Easter eggs in the house, which was dangerous. And I can tell you that I did read Toowoomba's, Ipswich's, Logan's, Moreton Bay's. I've read every policy that I could find my hand on. And I tried to blend those through the version that I've presented here. I'm not an expert in writing policy, but my intent is clear. I want every councillor to have freedom of speech, to be able to support council in maintaining its reputation in our community and the trust and confidence that people may have in their council. And that's why I was so heavy-handed with my review. In saying that, I do think the Mayor does need to be the official spokesperson, as you have rightly pointed out. However, I do want to see some more clarity, and that's what I had tried to provide in the feedback I'd been given around councillors' roles. And further to my comments before, I do think the point that I've made, paragraph 2 in the draft section around official council spokesperson, in speaking with the media, councillors are responsible for adhering to the principles of the Local Government Act 2009 and the Code of Conduct in a way that maintains council's integrity and reputation. Any councillor who speaks to the media in a way that breaches the Code of Conduct or brings reputational harm to council will be reprimanded by the entire council. Now, I understand there's a different process for that, but that's very much the intent of what I've drafted here today. I actually want to see councillors have freedom of speech, which I agree. I do think there is a tone of that in version 2, but I do want to flesh some of these areas out a little bit more, particularly in relation to requests for interviews, for news stories, participation in major events, and participation in paid council advertising. Like I said before, I don't think any of council's media should ever be around politically what is popular. I think it needs to be what's true, correct and factual and in the best interests of our community. So I would like to see a merging of the two documents before and I appreciate CEO Marcus said that will take a little bit more time. So, we've waited this long. I'm just so mindful that whatever we adopt influences the media relations flowchart procedure, and at the moment, in my opinion, that has been choking up good communications with our community. So that's my view. I appreciate you have a differing view, and that's what I would like to see moving forward. So I would like to see a blending of 2 and 3, as we've discussed here today, be brought back to council for consideration, with the Mayor as recognised as the official council spokesperson, as we have discussed here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. So, just in response to Councillor Duff, with your comments, all I was alluding to was the comments around the chamber was that they were lining up with what was in option 3, but providing that we recognise that the Mayor is the official spokesperson and on political sensitive stuff and all that sort of stuff. I think that acknowledges up front that he is the official spokesperson to the council. So it's again a blend of 2 and 3. So, if we have the acknowledgement of the Mayor being the official spokesperson in option 3, with the blend of the 2, is that?
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. No, because the the CEO has tweaked the blend, and then the rest of, to me, in option 3, it was just crossing the mayor's name out and leaving it as up to the councillors. And I took exception to that because, as I said before, the mayor should be the lead in this. It's the expectation of the community, and I just took exception to the whole tone of version 3. And I think that the CEO has done a good job. And I went through and we discussed with the councillors the 3 amendments that I think everyone has agreed to. And I don't think that, with all due respect, that the mayor has held up the process. I think that we have we don't have a media team like they have in some of the bigger councils. And I think that that's more about the process and how much workload they've got at trying to get stuff out, as opposed to the mayor holding up the process. So I just don't see where you're coming from with regards to that comment. Thank you.
Councillor Potter, we'll just give everyone one more chance and then we'll come to a recommendation. Councillor Potter.
Yep, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, in light of what Councillor Shoemaker has said, I do believe, as much as I would love to see this go to the next council meeting, I do believe we probably need to sit down and do some more work on this because, as I said, there are things in version 3 that I totally agree with that should be in version 2 and whatever. So whichever version we take, to me, it's going to be a blend of the two. And I would really like to sit down and actually hash that out a little bit more. Thank you.
Any other councillors want to make comment before Councillor Henson?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I can, pardon me, I can appreciate that. Councillor Potter, and I think there's a little bit more work to tweak this. A wonderful amount of work done by you, Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Duff. I will just allude to this. South Burnett Regional Council is its own council, and I get a little tired when we're comparing all this wonderful work done by our staff and we go back and compare to another council outside our region. I'm pretty sure we can come up with a document that we in this chamber and the respect of all our constituents out there that can agree on, rather than have to go across their borders and be reading everybody else's take on what their media policies are. We know what we want and the community knows what they want. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll come up with a great blend with this, and I'm sure with a combination and a little bit of due diligence between 2 and 3, we will come up with a very, very workable media policy. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Henson. Any other comments before we move to a recommendation from the floor, or a recommendation that's in front of us? Councillor Shoemaker, last opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I just, in terms of, I'm hearing you, Councillor Duff, there was a time before the previous state election when the Mayor came out and made some statements around the lockdowns of our communities, which I believe, my view is, were to detriment to our local member, Deb Frecklington's campaign. And I didn't have any understanding or exposure to those comments until I read them in the paper. And I had people in the community say to me, "What's this about?" I actually felt awful when I run into Deb Frecklington and apologised for not being able to give her more information. I feel that it's important that we as a council work together as a team when it comes to informing our community, and I feel at the moment we're not doing that very well at all. And I think there have been instances where political statements have been made, political promises have been made, and we as councillors have had, very little discussion, or you're just blindsided by what you read in the paper, which is what I would like to try to avoid. So while I'm hearing you, and I agree, the Mayor is the person who the majority of people in the South Burnett elected, I do think that it's important that we do take our time with this, that we really think it through and get a policy that will encourage us to work as a team when it comes to informing our community, and provide the clarity that we all need, the confidence that we need to go about our roles as representatives of the people. So my view is that I would like to see a stronger policy brought forward. I will not adopt policy 2 as it stands because I do think there are gaps in it. I would like a stronger policy adopted here, and that's why I would like to see a little bit more time taken to blend the two. I mean, absolutely no disrespect to any of my fellow councillors or the mayor. I just want clarity and an opportunity to confidently speak to the media and to be aware. I think, to be honest, what I do want to see in this policy is if the mayor has made statements political in nature, that they are shared with us as well. So I think it's right. This is a two-way process. We're a team, and at the moment I don't believe we're functioning very well as a team in this space. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. So 7.8, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Media Relations Policy, Strategic 001. Just want to, we have an officer's recommendation that a blending of, okay, so just at the moment, we're having a conversation. Are we all agreeable that a blending of version 2 and version 3 and this draft be brought back to the September Executive and Finance and Corporate Standing Committee, acknowledging the Mayor as the official spokesperson? So is that where the chamber's sitting at the moment? Without too much further conversation, we've had plenty on this, so just if you need to comment, Councillor Duff, keep it brief.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll keep it brief, but no, I just, I think that we've actually considered the issues here and that there's no need to actually bring it, that we don't need to blend it any further. I think that the amendments that we've discussed here covers off on Councillor Shoemaker's concerns, and I think that that it does cut both ways. And I think that with a part of the whole issue here is the lack of respect for the authority of the mayor, not so much the personality, but the position of the mayor as the official, as the actual authority of the mayor as a position rather than a personality. Thank you.
Okay, so we've all had plenty of time to discuss this. We need to have a recommendation put forward in regards to this. Councillor Shoemaker, you were making comment. Do you want to move a recommendation, or any other councillor for that matter? So, Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I would like to move that the committee recommend to council, or no? We'll bring it back, that a blending of version 2 and version 3 and this draft be brought back to the September Executive and Finance Standing and Corporate Standing Committee, acknowledging the Mayor as the official spokesperson. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones.
So you're happy to move that, Councillor? Yep. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Froloff. I think we've, Councillor Duff, one last chance and we'll go to the vote.
I just want to know with regards to the blending, because the CEO has had a go at blending it. So who's going to do the blending prior to it coming back to the September Executive and Finance and Corporate Standing Committee? Because I've got some amendments here. Do they get included in the blend, or how does that blend look?
Okay, process-wise, actually thinking about that myself. Manager of corporate services and myself, I think whatever, actually half thinking workshop, but anyway, yeah, we'll talk, we'll put it through. I think the only fair way to do it, if I can use that terminology, is to try and pull something together and then circulate it so everyone gets comment. Yeah. If that's, anyway, we'll talk about process, but there would be, everyone will need to see it before the agenda's closed prior to the next meeting. Absolutely.
Thank you, CEO. So that recommendation that's there in front of us, it doesn't need anything added to it about that process. It's a process that you will undertake.
It's the same as calling for, and I hope Lynelle and I were just writing it down as you were talking. So if that captures it, but if that's where we're going, the It doesn't go to the ordinary general next week because it's just effectively calling for another report and a rework of the draft. So in simplifying it down.
Okay, sorry, can I just ask one more question? So those, before I vote on it and support it or go against it, the recommended, like my amendments, can I send them through as we've discussed, as to be put into that draft?
And again, any further feedback from all councillors would be welcome. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Perhaps we add that to the recommendation, Councillor Froloff, if you're happy, that a blending of version 2 and 3 and this draft, along with this draft, be brought back to the Standing Committee and acknowledging the Mayor as the official spokesperson, full stop. Councillors' feedback will be taken into consideration and in the drafting process. Probably get rid of sorry. So that councillors' feedback will be taken into consideration. So my thinking there, yep, that's perfect. My intent there is that Councillor Duff has made some very good points this morning. She's got some feedback. I can see she's done extensive work also, and I do think some of those very much relate to exactly what we're trying to achieve. So they're equally warranted, and I think it would be wonderful if Councillor Duff perhaps send it. I've seen your notes; they're very comprehensive. Perhaps you could provide them to to CEO Mark so they can be considered in this process.
Okay, thank you. We'll deal with this. We've spent nearly an hour on this. So at the moment, we have the recommendation moved by Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Froloff, that a blending of version 2 and version 3 and this draft be brought back to the September Executive and Finance and Corporate Standing Committee, acknowledging the Mayor as the official spokesperson. Councillors' feedback will be taken into consideration in the drafting process. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay. 7.9, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Councillor Conduct Complaints Investigation Policy, Statutory 028. Quick summary, the local government must adopt by resolution an investigation policy about how it deals with suspected inappropriate conduct of councillors referred by the independent assessor to the local council. This policy states a process for investigating the suspected inappropriate conduct and the circumstances in which an entity other than South Burnett Regional Council may investigate the conduct. It is Council's responsibility to ensure that any investigation into a councillor's conduct is conducted in a way that is consistent with the requirements of Section 150AF of the Local Government Act 2009. And the officer's recommendation is that the report, a procedural motion.
First one is a procedural, Deputy Mayor, to take it off the table so it can be discussed. And then the
Okay.
second one is adopted as presented and
Yep.
was left lay on the table for further consideration, I believe. So if we could do the procedural one first and then
Yep.
you fellas can have a chat.
Okay, so we have the procedural motion that the report on the South Burnett Regional Council Councillor Conduct Complaints Investigation Policy, Statutory 028, be taken off the table. Do I have a mover? Councillor Potter, second to Councillor Froloff. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. So now we move to the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Councillor Conduct Complaints Investigation Policy, Statutory 028, be adopted as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconder. Councillor Henshin. Comments, questions, councillors, before we vote? Okay, nothing. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. 7.10, adoption of the South Burnett Regional Council Council Accepted Request Guidelines Policy, Statutory 004. The officer's recommendation that the committee recommends to Council that the South Burnett Regional Council Acceptable Request Guidelines Statutory 004 be adopted as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Froloff. Councillor Duff.
I want to move an amendment and it's based around my feedback, that the South Burnett Regional Council acceptable request guidelines statutory be adopted as amended with the term managers being added to the clauses referring to general managers and permitting open direct access by councillors.
So just while we're waiting on the amendment to be typed up by Linnell, quick summary. Acceptable request guidelines are intended to provide a clear process for councillors and council employees about the way in which a councillor may: 1. Ask a council employee for information to assist the councillor carry out his or her responsibilities under Section 170A(1) of the Local Government Act 2009, and 2. Ask the Chief Executive Officer to provide information that the local government has access to relating to the local government in accordance with Section 170A(2) of the Act. It is the responsibility of all council representatives to abide by these acceptable request guidelines. So we now have an amendment moved by or put forward by Councillor Duff that the South Burnett Regional Council Acceptable Request Guidelines Statutory 004 be adopted as amended with the term managers being added to the clauses referring to general managers and permitting open direct access by councillors. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Potter. Okay, open for comments, questions, councillors, in regards to this. Councillor Duff.
So, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I think that by adding the managers, which was the position through my whole career until this term, it makes for better communication, relationship building, and speeds council up. I know councillors have contacted the managers, particularly Manager Searle and Manager Tim, rather than the general manager, because it speeds things up, and it's basically it's for better communication and also to make it so that it's. I know that at the moment you can get permission from your general manager to talk to the managers under your portfolio, but I think that, for example, Councillor Potter has a road concern and she can't get. So then she would have to go to General Manager Meehan and then get permission then, if necessary, to talk to Manager Kevin Searle, whereas if she didn't have to go through that process, it would speed things up, and often you can just get a customer request sorted very quickly for the customer if you just a quick phone call to the managers, rather than having to go through the process of the general manager down to the manager. That's my thoughts around it. And up until this term of council, that's what we always did.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I note in the policy, communication between councillors and council employees must be conducted in accordance with the local government principles, and as it states here in the policy, comply with the law, conducted in good faith, conducted in a respectful, reasonable and professional manner. And I'm very mindful of two things. The first thing I'm very mindful of, as per point 3.2, policy we're referring to here is around our requests for information. And as per point 3.2, it says councillors shall consider the likely cost implications in making requests for information and shall not make requests where the costs could not be justified as being in the public interest. And I do feel in some instances, some of the requests for information that I've seen are taking key staff off important jobs in our community to respond. And in many cases, what I've also seen is we've got an opportunity to find that information that we may need to make a decision either by asking a question here in the chamber or by going through the many filing cabinet drawers full of paperwork and things that we've been given since certainly in my time of council. So I can only imagine someone like you, Councillor Duff, with 17 years of experience, how much information you would actually have. I guess what I'm thinking is, whilst I understand the intent of what you're saying around working with managers, my concern would be if politically, if we are hopping over our general managers to get an outcome on the ground much quicker. And I guess I'm just very mindful of councillor contact with councillor employees, and I'm a little bit concerned about whether this actually puts councillors in a compromising position. But I'm also concerned if it puts our staff, our general managers, in a compromising position where if we've gone to a quick phone call to a manager, is there risk of that becoming he said, she said? And whilst I understand we all want the outcome, absolutely want the outcome, there are clear processes and policies documented as to how we get those. So I guess I'm just thinking I'd like to hear from CEO Mark, because I'm thinking around those cost implications. I know we fill in the request for information and then our staff work very hard to meet the time frame of the 10 business days after receiving the request. And I'm just very mindful of how much time some of our requests, which often aren't necessarily related to a specific topic or thing that we're discussing or looking into in our committee meetings, some of the requests I've seen are from historical events many years ago, from activities that aren't in current day. So I guess I'm just trying to understand your thoughts, CEO Mark, around advice to councillors around our contact with managers versus general managers and yourself. And secondly to that, our considerations, how we make that analysis, or what your thoughts are in terms of the request for information process and how it's currently tracking and working, and if this is necessary.
Thank you. Couple of questions in there, and certainly Councillor Duff's feedback was considered, and we took it to the full SMT meeting the other day, and it was by consensual agreement at SMT that we leave the policy as it is. So so that's the recommendation back to council. Now council by resolution will adopt. There's two aspects to it. As far as the cost of preparing, if it's an external request for information, right for information request, we keep track of what it actually costs us in people hours plus cost. We are actually going to move to that now for internal requests, so that will be logged and documented. So there's an understanding of the time that's put into these type of requests. The other one is and I know we've had this discussion before as to where the policy is. So this is a formal policy for requests for information. So there is CRM processes, there's customer processes, and there is a legacy to hold on to send information direct. And Coordinator Wilson and I had the issue this morning when I was on leave recently. There was an acting CEO. In my automatic reply, I had in it that please contact info at, because that would ensure that the document, all very polite exchange this morning, but a party sent information direct to me. They didn't send it to the info, and I got a reply this morning saying, oh, have you got this? What's acknowledged? But they actually sent me my automatic reply back, which was, oh, okay. So we've tracked it down, we've registered it. So the CRM and the info at is still the best process for a lot of those direct conversations. The after hours, I suppose part of the rationale as to why we've left it as is, the general manager, I do believe the general managers need to understand. And if there is if we add managers in there, and it has been quite clearly articulated that the 10 days is an expectation, and there would be an issue if those 10 days are breached or the 20 days on extension. That's been very clearly articulated. If a manager gets a request for information and it's not circulated to other parties and it gets lost, what's the outcome of that? So if you insert managers directly into this policy as that stands, if we're sticking to those, which we should, those statutory timeframes, there is a consequence to that, which may involve disciplinary action for the individual concerned. So at this point in time, my recommendation, I don't know if I've got all your questions, councillors, or even Councillor Duff's concern. I certainly understand the day-to-day working. I can cite several examples where I know councillors have been working directly with managers. The general managers have given the okay, particularly in the portfolio areas. Councillors quite entitled to ask, like through CRM or whichever other process that we have out there is information that would be generally available to the public, or okay, there's a pothole here, or there's a fence paling down there, or something like that. The emergency after hours, it would be very rare that I don't have. I mean, there is actually, and just recently I stepped out for an hour of actually the COVID, and I apologise for this. I walked out the house and went, oh, dang, left my phone. Oh, it's all right. We're only going to be out for half an hour. And of course, a phone call came through, so returned it as soon as we got back in. Murphy's Law, and I will accept we are all human. But anyway, as in talking with the management body, we were comfortable with leaving the policy as is. Now, we're really, that's our recommendation to you. If there is a decision of council, that will be respected, and we'll move on with that.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. Councillor Duff.
So I think that there's, I'm confused because I know that I didn't mean that we put a formal request for information to the managers. It was more about, like we used to be able to, like if you're out in the field and someone's talking about a local law about roosters, are we able to phone, we can't get General Manager O'May, Manager Craig, and just say, could you give me a quick update on the local law with roosters? Is that allowable? It's more about that kind of stuff as opposed to going through the formal process of, because I would not consider going through a manager to get this kind of high level information. It's more about what councillors we can't Google it quickly, but it would be handy to know so that you didn't have to go through a whole process, because it's just a simple question to a manager who would be able to answer it in 2 seconds. So that's basically my question. And what the intention was, certainly not putting this as a manager being the one that you ask through the formal process.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. And I often do wonder whether this is the formal request for information. This is what this policy does. Manager Carolyn, and I'm just searching for it madly without doing a control find, which I don't think would work anyway. Is it? Yeah. There's Councillor 3. It's an engagement. If it's a piece of information that the public could rightly ring up and ask for, you can ring up and ask for it. It's to my mind, it's that simple. So, what time is the council meeting on next week? You can contact Mary and say, Mary, what time's the council meeting on next week? 9 o'clock. Any member of the public is able to do it. If it's a CRM, the engagement through the CRM process is, this is the request for information. This policy, and Carolyn, yep, 314, I'm just diving for it. A council may request from the relevant general manager information that could be reasonably considered in nature readily available. The relevant general manager may use discretion to provide. So if that's what you're talking about, that's the one you just drop the manager into. Yep, that would be. if that's
That's
what you're on about, yeah.
Thank
Yep.
you. That was
Yep.
basically, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, so, well, you've got an amendment there, but
So we would just, rather than all clauses, it would just be 314. Yep. Okay. Yep. Okay. Now,
Happy with that, yeah.
okay, so we'll continue moving on. If there's no more questions or comments in regards to that from any other councillors, we have an amendment moved by Councillor Duff, second by Councillor Potter, that the South Burnett Regional Council accept the request guideline statutory 004 be adopted as amended, with the term managers being added to clause 3.14. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll now move on to resolution, yes. So we've got to go through it again. So the committee recommends to South Burnett Regional Council acceptable request guidelines statutory 004 be adopted, that the South Burnett Regional Council acceptable request guidelines statutory 004 be adopted as amended, with the term managers being added to clause 3.14. So that has been moved by Councillor Duff, seconded by Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're on to agenda item number 8, and that is the portfolio for regional development, 8.1 Regional Development Portfolio Report. And I'll now hand to Councillor Shoemaker to present that report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. It's with great pleasure I present this month's Regional Development Report to Council. In May, South Burnett Regional Council demonstrated its commitment to local small businesses by signing the Small Business Friendly Councils Initiative with 7 business and community groups from across the region. In doing so, Council committed to ensuring fair procurement and prompt payment terms for small businesses. As discussed many times before in this chamber, Council endeavours to procure goods and services locally where possible, with the additional provisions in our procurement policy that ensure local businesses' price is competitive with businesses located outside the region who may quote for works. At a recent meeting of NATDA, Councillor Froloff and I presented some data about Council's local spend, and I recognised it was timely to provide Council with a similar update. For the 2020-21 financial year, Council's total local spend equated to $20 million, representing 40.47% of Council's total spend. As per my notice of motion on the agenda today, which will follow in the next agenda item, in my capacity as Regional Development Portfolio Holder, I have a strong desire to improve Council's performance in this area and in a sustainable way. Hence, I would like to propose setting a target to achieve a minimum 50% local spend by 2023. 50% local spend by 2023. Essentially improving our performance in this area by almost 10%. In my discussions with the CEO about this, I believe this is a responsible target, as this timeframe considers the current pressures experienced in the construction industry, the competitive nature of securing contractors in the current construction environment for works. Council undertakes, and the many challenges of logistics experienced in the procurement of materials across the industries during a pandemic. It is also important to understand that the South Burnett region is unable to provide all categories of supply that Council requires, hence 100% local spend would be impossible to achieve. I'd also like to advise that Council's payment terms and conditions are 30 days. However, Council staff endeavour to process on a fortnightly basis, provided the orders are signed off and verified for payment. I can also report that every effort is made to support the needs of small business, and upon request, the team will work with small businesses in an effort to support their needs. To determine how our current 40.47% local spend may be benchmarked against other local government areas, I've provided comparative data below from councils that I recognise may not be faced with the same challenges we are due to the number and diversity of local suppliers on offer in their region. In the Moreton Bay Regional Council, their local spend equates to 38.6%. For Logan City, 45%. Toowoomba Regional Council, 54%. And Gold Coast, 70%. South Burnett's total spend of $20 million in 2020 to 2021 has been spent across the region's local government area as detailed in the below breakdown per town. Mergen, $3.4 million. Kingaroy, $2.2 million. Oh, sorry, getting ahead of myself. Mergen, $3.4 million. Nanango, $2.2 million. Kingaroy, $11 million. Wondai, $2.3 million. Cumbia, $60,000. Proston, $110,000. And Blackbutt, $111,000. Please note the following categories of spend have been excluded from this report, which ensures that the local spend data I have presented is a true reflection on what council spends locally based on business profiles and locality. So we haven't included in the figure of $20 million our procurement with banks, community groups, donations, our wages to employees, government grants, insurances, licences, memberships, refunds, subsidies and utilities. The remaining $29 million of council spend was spent outside the South Burnett's local government area in 2020-21. Clearly, concentrated effort on growing council's local spend in the South Burnett must remain a core focus, and I believe setting a target of 50% by 2023 offers an opportunity for council to set the challenge and work toward the goal. Councillor Froloff and I also discussed council's Felix system with NATDA. The system is for non-contracted, low-risk ad hoc supply arrangements for businesses within the South Burnett local government area. There's no cost for local businesses to register on council's Felix system, which intends to capture the provision of goods and services such as catering, stationery, tools and equipment, hardware, printing, horticulture, plumbing and electrical products, uniforms, clothing and PPE, accommodation, training providers, spare parts, florists, IT, hardware, and many others. And I note in looking at this data, it was clearly said that council spending significant funds. We spend a lot of money across a number of different suppliers for those smaller items. So it's really important that as many businesses locally as possible are registered on our system. Currently, there are 566 registered vendors on the system, with 36% of these vendors considered to be local suppliers. And council has issued 485 requests for quotes and awarded 346 quotes. As always, all local businesses are encouraged to contact council's procurement team if they need any help, support or assistance in registering online. We also reported that in May, council launched Felix Marketplace, enabling South Burnett-based businesses to promote their offerings to a new audience. Currently, council has 46 registered local vendors with Felix Marketplace, and we continue to encourage all local vendors to register. The system aims to simplify the quotation process by allowing council officers to search, nominate and invite local suppliers to quote for council work with ease. In turn, suppliers will directly receive an email notification with an invite to submit a quote. All the supplier is required to do is log in for the details and then upload the quote. The Felix Marketplace is focused on affording opportunities for local suppliers wherever possible to provide or supply council with goods and services, and your support in ensuring small businesses in your respective divisions take up the opportunity is greatly appreciated. Another key area where it would be great to see more South Burnett businesses register is on the local buy platform, which can be accessed by all 77 councils across Queensland. There are more than 37 contracted pre-qualified supplier arrangements that facilitate business relationships between local governments and suppliers. Local Buy's core business is the creation of contractual arrangements for goods and services that can be used by Queensland councils, aggregating the demand for these goods and services to achieve better pricing and conditions. In trying to understand more about the important role small businesses play in underpinning our economy here in the South Burnett, I learned that according to the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman, small business represents the engine room of Australia's economy, accounting for 41% of the business workforce, employing 24.7 million people across Australia. Furthermore, the Australian Bureau of Statistics Business Register, originally sourced from ATO data, shows that in 2020 there were 3,171 registered businesses in the South Burnett. Predominant industries for these registered businesses included 44% being agriculture, forestry and fisheries, 11.2% in construction, 5.7% in retail trade and 6.1% in real estate and hiring services. Areas where Council has identified growth opportunities in its regional development strategy include 3.6%, which equates to 114 registered professional businesses and or technical services, and 2.8% in accommodation and food services, representing 88 businesses, 2.9% in manufacturing, being 92 businesses. I recently shared South Burnett Regional Council's economic overview with councillors via email, and I'd encourage you all to take a look when you can. I know here at South Burnett Regional Council we take our responsibilities in supporting our economy and our local business owners seriously. By signing the Charter for Small Business Friendly Councils initiative, along with our local businesses and community groups, Council is acting on these responsibilities. However, I do believe there is much more we can do, particularly in the areas of red tape reduction. I've since followed up with Les Redford, the Principal Project Officer for the Office of Queensland Small Business Commissioner. At the launch of the Kingaroy Chamber of Commerce and Industry Smile campaign, I spoke with Les about the work he had been involved in with Ipswich City Council to create a business launch pad, and it seems there may be some very valuable learnings that may be relevant to the South Burnett with regards to streamlining our food licensing processes. I've also been working with Tim Slayer, the Regional Stakeholder Manager for Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Queensland, CCIQ, Wide Bay Burnett, and we've been sharing ideas for a business forum that would bring members from all 7 community groups that signed on to the Small Business Friendly Charter initiative together. I saw this as an opportunity to encourage membership from these business groups to be part of the Regional Development Subcommittee, while working with CCIQ to discuss specific information about the COVID supports available, while seeking to understand the general challenges small businesses are currently facing in our region and their ideas for potential solutions to these. Another focus point for the forum would be to seek to understand the key priorities of small businesses in our region for advocacy development in the lead up to the federal election, and understand what opportunities there may be for further collaboration. Tim and I would like to propose a partnership between CCIQ and Council, where we look to host a business forum on Tuesday the 21st of September. That's a potential date. And we're considering holding the forum in Nanango. I wanted to discuss this idea with Council here today to understand your level of support in terms of being a part of what I see as very important and timely discussions to unpack in our region. I'd be seeking a small budget to provide some catering and the use of Council's meeting room or perhaps the cultural centre. I welcome your thoughts, ideas and involvement with regards to this proposal. And with that, Deputy Mayor Jones, I'd like to move that my report be received for information.
Thanks, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Potter. Questions, comments in regards to that report? Very comprehensive. Some very good figures there, Councillor, on the explanation of our local buy and spend across our region. It's when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's it's good. Even Blackbutt and Proston, 110,000 at Proston, 111 in Blackbutt. It's a good spend. Yeah. Any comments, questions, councillors? Before I'll go to Councillor Shoemaker just to maybe give us a bit more of an explanation on the CCIQ proposal, and then we can have a quick discussion and go from there. Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I just wanted to table that opportunity with Council today for some sort of business forum or discussion. I'm very mindful that each of my fellow councillors are regularly in contact with their local business groups. I know the Wando Business Group, fortunately unwell, but I know they had a breakfast this week. And I know there are the Mergen Business Development Association are very active, as is NAPTA, and of course the Blackbutt and Maidenwell community groups and the Proston Roundtable. And so just thinking your ideas, I think it's a really opportune time. On the back of COVID, a lot has happened in these past 12 months. It's been remarkable to see how many challenges across industry businesses have been faced with, and the innovation behind solving some of those problems, just basic things from logistics and sourcing materials. I know we're all hearing stories of that locally. And I guess just mindful of the federal election at some point in time and our role as a council to advocate for small businesses in the region. And I saw this as a great opportunity. I'm talking about a very low-key discussion and really a round-table discussion whereby we would invite each of the business groups to send some representatives along. I was thinking about an afternoon discussion with these representatives to really understand the state of play. I guess I saw that out of the NAPTA meeting. I can see NAPTA's doing a lot of work in that space and trying to understand what's happening in their region and how to progress. I know Elaine Raffin with the business, I went to a Women in Business dinner not long ago, and also the breakfast that I did attend. You know, we've got incredible people like Elaine who are really passionate about flying the flag. I guess I'd like to see how bring everybody together, have a conversation, let's get some ideas up on a whiteboard and talk about what's clear in my attendance across all these groups. We're talking about a lot of the same things, and somehow we've got to bring it together and start collaborating and using our platform and opportunity as a local government to really find the solutions to these problems. It's quite frustrated. It's wonderful that government announces funding programs and supports. What I'm finding as the regional development portfolio holder is I'm receiving a lot of phone calls from people who've got who are working from Western Australia or afar, who've got this bucket of funding, and really we just want to come out and network, and we're not really focusing, in my view, some of the programs that are being funded by federal government aren't really focusing on getting to the root cause of the problems that a regional area like ours faces. So it's wonderful to have these phone calls from tyre kickers who are saying, oh, have I got a deal for you? But I feel like that's not really getting an outcome on the ground. And I'm an outcome-driven person. So what I'm asking for is council support of holding a forum like this. Of course, I'd love for all of you to be involved. I would work with CEO Mark and CCIQ just on the logistics, but really what I see this forum about is really for us as a council to sit back, to lean in and to really listen to what our small business groups and representatives have to say in the lead up to the election, and certainly identify what our advocacy priorities are. I think it will help inform our shovel-ready pipeline of projects as well in the long run. So they're my thoughts, Councillor Jones, and I'd love to hear the thoughts of my fellow colleagues.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. And just before I go to Councillor Potter and Duff, Mr CEO, would it be fair to say that in regards to the funding and whatnot, that would be something that you may look to sort out? What's the process there?
Oh, I think we'd probably have to have a yarn to CCIQ and the council and look what, and I wouldn't imagine it would, it says irrationally that you could actually do it on a fairly reasonable sort of a budget. But yeah, no, I'm happy to work with the councillor.
Okay, so Councillor Potter, to you, and we'll try and keep rolling. Yep.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. Councillor Shoemaker, just curious, don't you have enough work to do? So, no, look, I think this is a great initiative, and I completely support this proposal. I think this is probably one of the better ones to bring our whole business community from across the whole South Burnett together, and this is the first time I think I've heard of this being done through and I mean, I know Councillor Shoemaker is working through that through the regional development side of things, but look, I think if you can bring CCIQ and all these different groups together under one roof, I think that's fantastic. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Duff.
I'm 100% supportive of it, and I actually, that's why I didn't support that regional tourism group that was put together, because I thought that this is what should have happened, that the business community across all of our region should be the lead agents in working with you, Councillor Shoemaker, to get some cooperation between all of the business groups. And so I'm very, very keen to see that happen. I think that they have a huge amount to offer, and this is the start of a way forward. I agree with Councillor Potter. It's long overdue that we try to get those business groups across our region to work together. So it's a great opportunity, but as I said, I would like to have seen them as the lead agents on that regional development group. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. So we have the Regional Development Portfolio Report presented by Councillor Shoemaker, moved by Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. 8.2, local procurement targets.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor
sorry.
Jones, could I bring a motion from the floor, if possible, based on the conversation that we've had here today, that the committee recommends to council a partnership between council's regional development portfolio and CCIQ to host a business forum on Tuesday, the 21st of September, with key representatives from each South Burnett-based business group and Chamber of Commerce, in Nanango. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I'd like to move that recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor. I'll just ask the CEO to comment around this, if he's happy with that, or anything needs to. Seconder, Councillor Froloff. Yep. Okay, Mr. CEO.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. It's acting Mayor. We would, it is, just what the discussion was before, and we'll take it to next week's meeting. Yep.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. So we have the motion there that the committee recommends to council that a partnership between council's regional development portfolio and CCIQ to host a business forum on Tuesday, the 21st of September 2021, with key representatives from each South Burnett-based business group and Chamber of Commerce in Nanango. Councillor Shoemaker has moved that, and Councillor Froloff seconded that. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. 8.3. 8.2. Oh, man. Sorry about that. Local procurement targets. The portfolio report noted a range of information pertaining to council's local spend. The officer's recommendation that the committee recommends to council that South Burnett Regional Council adopt an aspirational target to increase its local procurement to 50% of its annual spend by 2023. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, seconder. Councillor Henson. Comments, questions before we go to the vote? I think it's been explained quite extensively by Councillor Shoemaker. No. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. 8.3, Regional Development and Tourism Monthly Update. The summary, this report provides an update on the South Burnett Regional Council's Regional Development and Tourism section for the month of July 2021. The office's recommendation that the Regional Development and Tourism Monthly Update for July 2021 be received for information. And as you can see, it's quite extensive there. There's a lot of reports, paperwork there, facts, figures and all that sort of stuff. Do we have a mover? Councillor Fryloff, seconder. Councillor Potter. Questions, comments? Councillor Duff.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about how great the new branding and for regional maps and brochures are. And I'm not sure of the process here, but I just wanted to move a recommendation that Proston be included in that. So do I do that afterwards or?
You can, Councillor. We've answered, and this I suppose comes back. I'll start again. So these are your major townships. So if you're going to do Proston by itself, then you've got Warrulan, Cumbia, all those sorts of ones. So there's different brochures for different things. The visitor guide's still got to come out, and then the report there is. So at the conclusion, yes, you're correct. At the conclusion of this, council can move what it wishes. The brochures were done within, as explained through the request for information, the brochures were done within the allocation budget. There are previous flyers, brochures that have been handed out through the library in Proston, and would be happy to chat to you about what we can do going forward. So at the conclusion of this one, yes, that's when you move it.
Happy with that, Councillor? All righty, so we're currently dealing with Kirsty, Councillor Shoemaker, sorry.
You're right, Councillor Jones. Just wanted to acknowledge the significant report, the June 2020 South Burnett Monthly Report from Southern Queensland Country Tourism. I know Peter Homan's been here on a number of occasions and talked to us about is that in the next report? Oh, my apologies. I thought it was included in this. No comments from me around the Regional Development and Tourism Monthly update, other than thank you to everyone who's made it possible. I'll sit and wait for the next report. My apologies.
It's, we're almost there, councillors, we're almost there. So, Regional Development Tourism.
Sorry.
Councillor Duff.
I've got two questions. This is on the back of the Visit South Burnett comments there. Has council received a proposal for the next 12 months from Visit South Burnett? Because I've been told by the President that a proposal has been put forward to council, that they've actually, and I haven't seen it across any council table.
No.
So there hasn't been one? And the second
No, and to expand on that, they've done the presentation proposal that they presented to all councillors. Conversations have occurred about getting them in. Same answer as last week, and it gets, I suppose very shortly is to, I don't know how much more I answer this, is that there will be a presentation or a meeting. We're trying to organise times with them before the first quarter. Their time runs out in September, so what they're doing will come back to council prior to the first quarter budget review. So there's barring what has been circulated previously and already to councillors, as well as the monthly report, and I can acknowledge they're sending in information, hence the guide brochure and everything out, and it just actually is starting to, as I said, I'm not quite sure how often I have to say this now, is that prior to the first quarter review.
It's funny because, okay, thank you. They've said that they send an official proposal, but yeah, I don't know.
Unless it's like it went directly to somebody, which again, I'll give the info at South Burnett a plug. That info at sbrc.qrd.gov.au email. If it's gone somewhere directly, they certainly gave the presentation and they dropped in the draft tourism strategy and that at that session they had with all councillors. I don't recall seeing it. We'll go and have a look then to see where, in case it's sitting somewhere in a desk. But The more we can encourage people, even if they're sending it directly to a councillor, myself or general manager, to CC in that info, it does really help. Really helps a lot.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Fryloff.
Second one was just, which you pretty much answered, the process and timeframe for deciding on our future partnership, yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can, through you, Deputy Mayor Jones, can I ask, how often has our representative for council, Councillor Shoemaker, been invited to visit South Burnett? Can I please ask?
Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Frolov, for the question. CEO Mark and I met with Visit South Burnett President Jason Kinsella for coffee just before CEO Mark went on leave. And it was at that meeting we had a very honest conversation, and I was assured I'd be invited to attend any sort of committee meetings or discussions. It was my understanding Visit South Burnett did have a plan for some sort of meet or greet function, which I believe is coming up. And yes, no, I since that coffee date have not received an invitation to any committee meetings of Visit South Burnett at all. So we will soldier on.
Yeah, thank you. And let's hope that Visit South Burnett are still underway with progressing some sort of functions, and yeah, they keep their word, which I have no doubt or no other way of thinking they won't. Okay, so we will now go. Good. Okay, Regional Development Tourism Monthly Update. The committee recommendation moved by Councillor Fryloff, seconded by Councillor Potter, that the Regional Development Tourism Monthly Update for July 2021 be received for information. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. 8 point. Oh,
Sorry.
okay, Councillor Duff.
I just
Aren't you
want-
hungry?
Sorry, I just wanted to move that the committee recommend to council, this is the motion that I mentioned before, that tourism town guides are designed and produced for Proston and surrounds, incorporating the new destination South Burnett branding consistent with the recently produced guides for other locations. And the reason, do you want me to give the reason? Because Proston, Badooma and surrounds is a large tourism area with some of our region's most significant tourist locations. And the future of our region depends largely on growing that area as a tourism destination. So Proston is the gateway to the Badooma Dam and also the Badooma Homestead. And I just think that because there's a gap out there that we should have included them in this brochure. I know that there's lots of other little communities, but it's so far away, and the dam and the homestead are a big part of our region, and I just think that that's why you would have a brochure. And the library is very much their visitor information centre, and I just think it would be great to have one of those brochures for Proston outlining the dam and the homestead as part of that gateway to that northwestern end.
Thanks, Councillor. And my question to GM, do we have a seconder for that amended? We'll just wait for Linnell to type that up before we ask for a seconder so that we can see. Okay, so Councillor Duff's recommendation is that the committee recommends to council that tourism town guides are designed and produced for Proston and surrounds, incorporating new destination South Burnett branding consistent with the recently produced guides for other locations. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Shoemaker. Oh, okay, sorry, Councillor Shoemaker, you've missed the boat. Councillor Potter's I'm getting smashed by the CEO from the right-hand side here. But, okay, so we've got Councillor Potter. I'd just go back just quickly in what the CEO responded to. There is, and Councillor Duff acknowledged the fact that there is a lot of other communities, small communities like Proston across our region that all have wonderful things, and we all mention it, diverse opportunities right across all different towns. That we all have different things to offer in our separate towns across the region. So, Mr. CEO, am I wrong in surmising that Boondoomba Dam, Boondoomba Homestead and all that aren't picked up in tourism guides already? Or I do struggle. I'm a big one for fair and consistent. So if we do it, and I totally get what Councillor Duff is saying, Proston is right smack bang in the dam and all that sort of stuff in the Boondoomba Homestead, but there is plenty of other smaller villages, Warrula and Tungura, they're significant and got other options. So are we singling out one particular area and not recognising the others? That's my question.
Oh, you're right. No, that's all good. I'm going to be candid and frank. To isolate one town out of all the others, I don't believe is correct, and I would never recommend it up. Now, if the resolution was, the budget is, as you would know, is very, very tight in this space. And as we went through all the trouble the other day to respond to a question, is that we had allocation. We were going to be the regional tourism guide is coming up next. South Burnett Today will pick that up from the old, I believe, still from the old South Burnett Times. They pulled it out. The travelling maps were moved, so this was a little bit of a moving feast while we fitted into that gauge. We've picked up a half-page ad in the Visit South Burnett guide that they're going to put out. At this point in time, we're struggling to keep up with material, hard copy material, even in the digital age. The really positive about all this is whatever we do going forward is we're struggling to keep up with hard copy material. We're down, or we're probably less now. The last time we had the old, as they will be shortly, the old tourism guides, we're down to our last 2 boxes. Bar what's already in the stock in the VIX and different centres around. So there needs to be a range of this material going forward. Rather than, it is, in my point where I was trying to make it before, probably inelegantly, was it shouldn't be just, I don't believe anyway, personal opinion, it shouldn't be just one town. If we're going to do this for these little communities, we could probably pick up all of them in the same run.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you. I do agree with what the CEO is saying. I think there are many little towns and villages in our region who have unique identities and such a good story to share. I do, and are genuinely invested in trying to encourage more visitors to their area. I understand Proston's scenario with Boondoomba Homestead and Boondoomba Dam, and I definitely agree. It does need a guide of its own, and I understand it did have one previously, and our apologies that certainly that was missed. I don't think that was by any means intentional. I understand you had questions about that, Councillor Duff, which, as you always do, fly the flag for your area, but please understand by no means was that ever our intent to exclude Proston from this process, not at all. I also just, in looking and thinking about this, was thinking about the Bunya Mountains Maidenwell pocket, because we've got Coomba Falls, Maidenwell's on the edge of the Bunya Mountains, and there's some significant Indigenous sites and things in that area. So I wonder if we shouldn't do a bit more of a review on this around, and maybe it could be something that we discuss at the business forum or when we go to these various business breakfasts and things. But I think in many ways, smaller towns do need some support in this area. And I think there may be more than just Proston that we need to consider, particularly around Warrula with the growth of the Farm to Fork Collective, the rail trail and the bird watching opportunities. I think there are plenty of tourism experiences there for the taking, and maybe this is a much bigger parcel of work that we need to consider what kind of budget we need to do this properly. Because as you all know, regional development's budget is the finest out of everyone. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And yes, I am hungry. I've got a blood blister on my belly from a backbone pinching it. So I'll keep this very short. I can understand where Councillor Duff is coming from, but then I could stand here and say about the gateway to Burnett with Cumbia and Geelong. And then we'll have all our little villages and towns in the middle. I appreciate Councillor Shoemaker. You've mentioned here in Mergen, Wandai, Kingaroy, Nanango, Blackbutt, all those towns are virtually towns that encompass and involve those little towns and villages as well. So I think, you know, I'm very confident that the likes of Proston and the likes of the Derma Dam, as will the Bunya Mountains and all the stone fruit in the Cumbia area and out in Geelong, Burndoomba Homestead, which we share a little bit there. Yeah, I'm very comfortable with the work that you've done, Councillor Shoemaker, and certainly I can understand that there's been nobody left out for a reason. To me, those towns incorporate the entire South Burnett because they're majority towns. So I am getting hungry.
Councillor Duff.
So do I have, so this is my right of reply, is it, or? Okay, so the reason why, because Proston was originally in that sweep, and it got missed, and the reason why I think Proston was in there, there is a point of difference in so much as the council has a library there that we fund, and it's got it's like the Visitor Information Centre. They also do the rates there, so it's like and that is because it is so isolated out there that because it's so far away from all the other areas, we fund as I said, a council staff in the library, and also they receive rates. And when it's quite, to me, embarrassing when they have no brochure to hand out when you go in to pay the rates or whatever, that there's not, it wasn't included. I think it was just an oversight, and that's why it was included in the whole mix, because it's a big area with some large tourist attractions, including 2 of council's large tourist attractions, and it's not, I agree that all of the little towns, communities, villages have got something to offer, but I just think this is a big area of our region that has been left out, because geographically it sits fairly isolated when you look at our region as a whole. So I'm just pushing really hard to just get Proston included. They are the only people, like the Proston community was the only ones that I got any pushback from or about it not being included, and I think that was because there was an expectation that it would be. I haven't heard from Banarkin or Moffatdale or any other community. It was just Proston, because they really have fire in their bellies. They're really trying to promote that whole area, and I just think it's a slap in the face if we defeat this motion today.
Thank you, Councillor. That's a good segue. You've led me straight in. Banarkin, I was going to mention that along with just a good example. I can tell you now that to say that Proston people are really trying to sell their region or their small area, there's not one section of this South Burnett Council region that aren't doing a wonderful job self-promoting and trying to promote their own individual villages right across the region. Now, Banarkin and Taromeo and all that sort of stuff, we're in conjunction with Blackbutt, but Taromeo, some of these councillors come down, and the tourism and heritage people took us on a tour, and we went out to a site, and I can't remember the site, but it was out, we saw 2 borer rings. We've got Jesse's Well, we've got Taromeo Station, all that sort of stuff. So I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying here, Councillor, but I won't be supporting this motion simply because I want to go back and include everybody, as the CEO has indicated, that when we do one run, we do the whole region and get all these small villages and all that. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying and supporting it, but at this stage, I won't support this simply because I think there is so many other little areas like Proston across, like Tingura, and Councillor Shoemaker highlighted the fork to plate and all that sort of stuff, and what's available around Barul and all those smaller communities and everything that we've got to offer. So I won't be supporting that recommendation, but I am more than keen to have a conversation around expanding it to all those areas, just like Proston in the whole region. So is there any other comments before we go back to Councillor Duff for right of reply or anything like that before we go to the vote? Councillor Shoemaker?
Just based on the discussion, is it possible to move an amendment to the recommendation? Yeah, so.
Yeah, amendment. Anyone can move an amendment.
Yep, so because there has been a tourism guide produced for Proston previously, I'm supportive of getting that done. So I'd like to keep that, but I'd also like to put in a point, incorporating new destination zoning, produced for Proston, and then a second point, and that council, or committee recommends to council, get rid of council, that, we investigate opportunities to prepare similar materials for the smaller towns and villages across the South Burnett. Establish the value and level of local buy-in and bring, buy-in, sorry. And bring a report back to council to a future standing committee. Sorry, Linnell. Say the October standing committee. With approximate costings for consideration. So what I mean by establish the value and level of local buy-in, it's not worth, in my mind, producing a brochure for a town if there's not a place to put that and people actually actively giving it out and promoting it. So probably just, and that might be something that us as councillors have to understand. But yeah, and I think to make an informed decision, we, as always, need to consider the budget because, as CEO Marcus said, this council has a very fine regional development budget. So if we were to do this, we'd have to consider whether it could be this financial year or future financial year.
So just a question, Councillor, you're happy with your amendment, the tourism, you're still happy with that tourism guides are designed and produced for Proston? You happy to leave that there or is that, yeah?
Yes, because Proston has had historically a guide, and I can understand their concern if they weren't provided with one. I know it has been a tool that community has used and relied on, and like I said, it was absolutely no intention to cut Proston out. It's no intention to cut any community out, and I think we all are aware of that, and I think it's very important as councillors that, we recognise that these things sometimes are overlooked. It's not intentional, Councillor Duff. I just can't apologise enough. It's by no means intentional, and I don't want that feeling in our community. It's so important that we work together with these things and that we work above the line. So I take your comments on board, but please understand it was no means intentional. I do think we need to replace the Proston brochure. But I do think on the back of that, we do need to look at those other communities and who has been missing out for all of these years and could really do with materials of this nature. and bring that back so that council can consider what it's going to cost and how we move with these sorts of things going forward. I really do appreciate the work CEO Mark and the team have done in just trying to provide something for our community on the back of the fact that we've run out of materials and no one has been preparing them. So, it's a great position to be in, visitation, so great to the region, but it's terrible if visitors are coming and we don't have anything to give them. So that's my view on it. I'd like to see that added in.
Thanks, councillor. I have the same concerns even when you've moved the amendment. You've highlighted the regional development budget. Wouldn't it be beneficial, acknowledging the fact that Proston does need it, will get it, but wouldn't we be able to be better off or more beneficial doing a whole sweep of the region and having everything in place and doing the one print for all this? That's all I'm saying. Like if we go ahead and do Proston separately and then we go on ahead and do another whole process of doing the rest of the region, is it not beneficial, acknowledging the fact that Proston has had it in the past and Proston does deserve it and all that sort of stuff, but is there any other communities out there that we can do all in the one sweep? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that I'm against that. I'm just saying, is it more beneficial, considering the budget conversations and the comments, to do it all at once and produce those brochures together? That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, Councillor Duff.
So I'm 100% happy with the amendment, and I just think that because it was just an oversight, that we should progress the Proston one and do as Councillor Shoemaker has suggested, because that could take some quite significant amount of time to go through that whole process, whereas it was just an oversight to miss Proston, so I'd be keen to see that, if at all possible, to be rectified, and so that when they have their library open and there's a slot there which Proston brochures were meant to be in, that they can be filled sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you. We need a seconder. We've had that amendment moved by Councillor Shoemaker. Do we have a seconder?
Sorry, I just thought that if the mover are happy, that it just becomes the motion.
So Councillor Duff, Councillor Potter, you happy with the changes to the amendment? Okay, let's go to the vote. This is that the committee recommends to council that tourism town guides are designed and produced for Proston and surrounds, incorporating the new destination South Burnett branding consistent with the recently produced guides for other locations, and 2, that council investigate opportunities to prepare similar materials for the smaller towns, villages across the South Burnett, establish the value and level of local buy-in, and bring a report back to the October Executive and Finance and Corporate Standing Committee meeting with approximate costings for consideration. Those in favour? Those against? My God.
Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor, permission to speak?
How do we go on that?
All right.
Yes, Councillor Angel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right, you've seen just what's happened. I'm in favour of number 2 and incorporating Proston in that, because there's some work and there's some serious costings in that. But Councillor Duff, would you at all consider removing number 1 and putting the likes of Proston in number 2, where all our little villages, because we're going to, you know what's going to happen now. Somebody is going to come down here on a ton of bricks, because what about us? Tangura, Warulin, Memorandum, like all the rest. I appreciate where you're coming from, that they used to have one. But how about we incorporate it in the second one, moving forward, we do the entire South Burnett with all our little villages and work towards a costing for that. I put it to the chamber, is that acceptable?
Mr CEO, I will be guided by you on this.
Councillors, again, when I was asked the question, why don't these come to council? This is the exact reason why these sorts of things don't come to council. Council sets a budget, we adhere to the budget, and we go from there. I can't help you. It's a 3-3. There's a casting vote. The only thing I will guide is if it's passed, it goes through to the ordinary next week. So, and then it can be dealt with there. So it really is either that or, well, yeah, there's really no. It's a casting vote. Once you guys have got to this point, yeah. Certainly, if it was passed, it ends up at next week's meeting, and then we can get some numbers and give you some background information on what it would cost.
Okay, well, I've stated my case, and I know it doesn't sit well with Councillor Duff, but I'm sorry, but I can't see the benefit. And I will say, I'll say it again. I acknowledge that Proston has had it before, and I commit to Proston having it again. But I can't see the benefit to the budget or the region or the council going out and doing a print for Proston now and then running across our whole region and doing a whole sweep of anybody. We may not have anybody, but for the sake of another, I don't know how long it takes. And one casting vote, it's anyway, but I'm sorry, but that's just my position on it. So I would be hypocritical to vote the way I did and then change my mind when I still believe the same thing. So I'm sorry, I can't support that.
Acting Mayor, or Deputy Mayor, Acting Mayor, would it be helpful, given that now we know that this is going to be an ongoing discussion, if we bring a report back on these brochures to the next standing committee? Would that, and then you can decide a path forward from there as an offer of assistance?
Would all councillors be happy with that? So what do we need to put there? So a report back to the next standing committee. Yep. Don't have to, we just state that. It's just a report back to the next standing committee. Okay. I'm sorry, like I said, fully support, understand exactly what the council is saying, and I just can't see the benefit in doing a one-letter print and then coming back and having a similar. I'm sorry. Okay. 8.4, Southern Queensland Country Tourism South Burnett Monthly Report, June 2021, that the report be received for information. Quick summary, providing a copy of the South Burnett Monthly Report for June 2021, and that the officer's recommendation that the report be received for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker. Seconder, Councillor Froloff. Questions, comments, councillors? Councillor Shoemaker.
And I've got the right time now. I just think this is a brilliant report. It shows how the maturity of the information in which Peter Homan and the team at Southern Queensland Country are collecting. And, you know, as Jason Kinsella has said many times from Visit South Burnett's perspective, this data actually means you're not fishing in a pond hoping to catch a fish. You actually can go fishing in the right pond where the fish are very interested in coming to our area. So, you know, I think this report and this data is valuable, and particularly if I was a tourism operator in the South Burnett, I would be looking at this report. So please, if you can, share this in your respective communities. It would be greatly appreciated. You'll see on page 157, the length of stay in June 2021 was 4 days and has had an increase of 33% when compared to 2020. Average length of stay is in a great spot this year, seeing its highest numbers when compared to 2019-2020. You know, information like this is really valuable, so it's great to see that people are staying longer in our area. It's great to see that there's been no real standout day for people to visit the South Burnett in June. The highest level of visitation was on a Wednesday at 16.94%, but similar levels were seen through the week. The lowest day was on a Monday at 11% visitation. So it's good to see we've sort of got that sustainable number of visitors coming through our area. The visitor segments and the source market data is exceptional. Demonstrates there by sort of checking on where people's phones and MasterCards are at any which time. a large proportion of our visitors, if you're on page 160 and 161, a large proportion of our visitors are coming from Brisbane, Moreton Bay, Toowoomba and Sunshine Coast areas. And you'll also see from the visitor segment data that, a lot of 29% are flourishing professionals, 26% are enterprising households, and they're sort of assuming that 13% people with urban affluence, and they take that based on how much money you're spending in the area. Also great to see that on page 175, 52% of people travelling to the South Burnett for our outdoor activities. And of course, as you can see, biking and cycling 23%, wildlife viewing 24%, nature photography, fishing and camping are our key areas. On average, most of people are experiencing joy with their outdoor activity experiences. However, the camping measure is a little bit confronting, 2% volume for camping and one angry person who's obviously gotten online and shared that with the world. As you can also see on page 167, we've got a tourism sentiment score, so that's everything everyone's saying online about the South Burnett. All the good stuff, take away any bad stuff. There's only been 2% bad comments made, which gives us a score of 58. As I've repeatedly said in this chamber, I really want to see organisations like Visit South Burnett really focus on growing that score. I think we can do much better than 58 myself. Country hospitality, wide open spaces and blue skies. I think in a COVID pandemic, there's so much we could do in this region. So it's just great to see this data, and I'd encourage you all to share it as much as you can. Please take the time to really read those insights. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor, for a very good summary there of the Southern Queensland Country Tourism monthly report for the South Burnett. So if there's no other questions, Councillor Potter.
Look, I'm just one point in here that actually may change the next report you bring back. I'm hoping that there'll be more people in tourism and not for the bikes and the rail trails, hopefully for our music, because now that we've got Julianne Bell, who's been on TV lately, and she's in her new, she's got the Six Appeal team, that's her and her husband and Georgina and a few others that are in that. So, and I think that that just may change the numbers next term.
A very good comment, Councillor, and the South Burnett continues to throw up very, very talented people across all aspects of life. Talika Clancy in sport, Julianne Bell in music, and I'm sure there's a heap of others out there that we're unaware of. All right, so we'll get there now to the committee recommendation, moved by Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Fryloft, that the report be received for information. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. 8.5, Mobile Black Spot Program. The summary of information about the Mobile Black Spot Program here. The officer's recommendation that the committee recommends to Council that the following areas be investigated for future submission to the Mobile Black Spot Program. A, Boondoomba Dam, Queensland 0528. 2, Mount Moberlin, Bunya Mountains, Queensland 1505. And C, Moffatdale, Burnett Highway, Redgate. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker,
Yes.
seconder.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Potter and Councillor Shoemaker.
I'd just like to add to that recommendation in moving it, Councillor Jones, Millar Road, Kingaroy. I know I've been speaking with people who live, and I know I shared an email with all of you, people who live as little as 4 kilometres from Kingaroy and are standing in their offices, unable to move from one room to the next because they can't carry, there's not enough reception to carry a phone call. I actually had to call one constituent back a number of times during our call. It kept cutting out. I just cannot believe, so close to the edge of Kingaroy, it's a problem. I understand Millar Road is registered with David Littleproud's office, and the person that I spoke to had been speaking to David Littleproud's office, who said the request had to come back through council. So I'm asking for council support in recommending Millar Road, and I can certainly get the further details. I'm not sure if there's a number or something with that registration, but I can get that.
Okay, so Councillor Shoemaker has added Millar Road, and Councillor Potter, I think you seconded that, did you? You're happy with that addition?
Yeah, well, actually, further to that, because there is another spot there that is empty, I would just like to add, because we've got the issues with Crawford, Memrambi and Warrulan as well, which is on the main highway. So the connectivity in that area as well. So even the people in Memrambi have to do the same thing with regards to mobile phone calls.
As a mover, Councillor, you happy to add that?
Absolutely.
Okay, just before we go to the vote, I just want to make it, we've got some unfair criticism around this about not putting in applications for funding and all that sort of stuff for the mobile black spot program. And since its inception, in round one, Boyneside, Geelong, Cumbia and Wattle Camp were all funded. Round two, Gordon Brook, Maidenwell, Tingura and Windra were all funded. Round three, government nominated priority locations. Based on government priority locations, we didn't have any in there. Round four funded, we were unsuccessful. And round 5 and 5A funded, we have Karanga North, Kingaroy Venue and Memrambi. So just to let the people know out there that the council has been very proactive and very successful in applying for Black Spot program funding over a long period of time. Mr. CEO?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. So hoping someone would ask me what's a Kingaroy venue. The 5A round was all, one was a small cell and the other two are macro cells. So certainly with the Memrambi, I don't know that the macro cell's in yet, but anyway, we'll follow that up. But they're not full base stations. They're that much smaller localised cell. So, and the little bracket number in the round is the actual number of total stations funded in that round. So you can see decline's not the right word, but 499, then they funded 266, then they funded 180. The round three was we weren't eligible to submit. That was government priority only. So there was 102 in that, and they haven't issued, that I've seen yet anyway, the final number for 5 and 5A.
I just had a question with relation to that Memrambi tower. So has that kind of resolved the issue that Councillor Potter's talking about, or that's supplementary to that?
That'll be, I don't believe it has resolved the issue, but it's going to be, whether it's turned on or not yet, it's going to be a macro cell, so it'll be quite localised. So certainly up and down the highway, if you can get a tower pointed that way. So whether we can build on it going forward or do something different, but the Memrambi cell is a macro cell.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, comments, we'll go to the committee recommendation moved by Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Potter, that the committee recommends to council that the following areas be investigated for future submission to the mobile black spot program. A, Boondoobah Dam, Queensland 0528. B, Mount Moblan, Bunya Mountains, Queensland 1505. C, Moffatdale, Burnett Highway, Redgate. D, Millar Road, Kingaroy. And E, Crawford, Memrambi, Warrulan. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. 8.6, lockdown support for Queensland business. Summary, the Queensland Government recognises the short interval between lockdowns in South East Queensland and the unique circumstances faced by regional economies who are impacted by multiple border closures. These $5,000 grants will provide cash flow support for businesses to help them adapt to evolving circumstances, and the officer's recommendation that council notes the report for information. We have a mover, Councillor Froeloff, seconder, Councillor Henson. Comments, questions? All good? All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Question 9, questions on notice. Our 9.1, change of ownership of properties in the South Burnett over the past 6 months. The following question was received from Councillor Shoemaker. The question was, how many properties have changed hands in the last 6 months? And the response, a search of council's rating... a search of council's rating system has shown the number of property transfers processed from the 1st of January 2021 to the 30th of June 2021 was approximately 1,129, which is enormous transaction. So that is a great thing. And we, in conversations earlier in the week, real estate agents have spoken to the Mayor, and the Mayor has passed on the information that a lot of the rental properties that we've had in the region are being bought. Have been bought up by owner occupiers. So it's an incredible improvement in our region. And I'll go to General Manager Jarvis. Do you want to say a few words, and then I'll come across to Councillor Henson before we...
Thank you, Acting Mayor. No, I just want to clarify that just on average, that it averages out at 47 rate searches per week for 6 months. That's averaged out. That was all. I just wanted to highlight that to council. That was all. Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Henson.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Jones. Yeah, could that, that's a very interesting statistic. Could that be incorporated in our notes in future reference every 6 months?
It certainly can. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shoemaker actually has requested that before to, as part of her portfolio report to council to as an economic driver, but happy to include it in both reports. Thank you.
Councillor Shoemaker, are you happy with the response there?
Yes, absolutely. It's an incredible number of property transfers, and I think, if anything, over the next few months, we can expect to see that keep growing. Thank you.
Okay, so the recommendation is that the response to the question regarding the number of properties which have changed hands in the last 6 months raised by Councillor Shoemaker be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, seconder. Councillor Potter, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. 9.2, Mergen Industrial Land. The following question on notice was received by Councillor Duff. The question was requesting an explanation on why the commercial land in Mergen is higher than any of the other commercial land in the South Burnett. The response was commercial and industrial are two different categories. Assumption made that commercial was the intended category in relation to this question on notice. It is believed that when councils amalgamated in 2008, the cents in the dollars were adjusted to bring the amount paid for similar properties into alignment. Mergen Industrial Land had much lower valuations, which meant that the cent in the dollar was increased. Please see attached the information regarding rating methodologies for previous years there, and council workshops to review the general rating categories with the aim of bringing the cents in the dollar closer together have been identified in the 2021-22 operational plan. So the recommendation is that the response to the question regarding Mergen Industrial Land raised by Councillor Duff be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Duff, seconder. Councillor Froeloff. Questions, comments, Councillor Duff?
Just wanted to say that thank you. It's a comprehensive report and I'm happy with the response. Thank you.
Okay, in taking those comments from Councillor Duff, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. 9.3, fuel tax credit substantiation methodology system. The following question on notice was received from Mayor Otto in a June Budget Committee meeting. The question was, what does it take for council to get a substantiation methodology system in place? Suggest engaging a taxation law advisor to provide this council with methodologies in relation to fuel tax credits. The response was, Finance have sought to engage a consultant who has specialised knowledge in fuel tax credit claims for local governments. The consultant is going to look at Council's current system and assist in setting up a procedure for a new methodology that would be able to allow Council to claim the maximum of what they are entitled to. The consultant will also assist in performing a retrospective adjustment for the fuel tax credits that Council hasn't currently claimed for the past 2 financial years. The recommendation is that the response to the question regarding implementing a substantiation methodology for fuel tax credit claims raised by Mayor Otto be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, second. Councillor Duff. Mr CEO, how do we go there? The Mayor is not here, obviously, so what do we... Okay, so we go straight forward to the vote then. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. I believe we have nothing in the confidential section, so thank you all for a very, very in-depth meeting, and I call the meeting closed at 1:59. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.